All right. First thing is, this call meeting order. First thing is the pledge of allegiance. Standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Okay, first thing is approval agenda, additions, corrections. Additions, mainly. Now, somebody make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Someone second.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I oppose, motion carried. First thing is Bolton and Mink.
Wow, that was quick.
Yay, yeah, really.
Yeah, I'll let Joyce. He's been involved with the finance, looking at PFA. Bonding, a lot of things to consider there. The governor's bonding bill or the Minnesota's bonding bill. I haven't checked here recently, but I know that's still in New York, but they do adopt it. It's gonna be sometime in, I think, May, early or later part of May, early June before the governor would even consider it and sign it. There's a lot of things out there. A lot of people are applying for financing. They want, so there's only X amount of dollars to go around. County needs to be able to get city of Good Thunder and their water improvements on that in that bill, so the bonding bill. So anyway, right now we're just waiting. Next step is to continue with the PFA financing, but before I go in, I'll just let you know.
We'll talk about the project that we've been talking about for a couple of years now, I believe. I have Councilmember Day, I haven't had the opportunity to meet you, but I'll just give a brief background of the project. So the city's been looking at a new water treatment facility and demoing the existing water treatment facility. And the existing backup well would be decommissioned and the existing primary well would then become the backup well. So we've been working with the state representative, Sue, and myself have been working with State Representative Bjorn Olson. He's the representative for this area on the legislative floor. And so a couple of his legislative assistants, we've had some correspondence with them as well. So it dates back to, March of 2024 is when we first got going with the representative, and essentially we asked him to try and allocate $10.9 million on the legislative floor for the city of Good Thunder. And of that, $7.5 million was for the water treatment facility, and the demolition of the existing facility, $7.5 million. $3 million was for South Halliday Street reconstruction and looping the water main down Chapel Street. And then $300,000 was for a Hiller Drive water main looping project. You sum those up was the $10.9 million that we've been asking for. That'd be a state bonding bill project. Bonding bill dollars are kind of, there's not an exact science for how to obtain them, but you work with your representative and you explain the needs the needs we have in our community, and you hope that your representative can do a good job lobbying on the legislative floor to get those dollars. So like Jeff noted, and probably a lot of you follow the political cycle there. They didn't get a bonding bill approved in 2025. In 2024, thank you. And now here we are in 2025. And one would like to think a bonding bill would be passed, but we don't know that for sure. They're back in session now, trying to work to get a bonding bill approved. So with that said, we asked for the $10.9 million from our state representative to try and get that. And then what the city's also been doing is applying for PFA financing. You get on the project priority list and the intended use plan, or two acronyms we're always saying. Project priority list is PPL and intended use plan. And what PFA is, it would be a low interest loan for the city to use as a local match. If the representative of the 10.9 we asked for, he could secure 7, and now we have 3.9 that the city needs to be able to finance. So that was the reasoning for getting on the PPL and IUP. It's a low interest loan program for the city to.
What are they calling low interest right now? Or what would be interest right now?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Mayor. It's certainly not the 2 to 3% interest rates that we were talking and kind of the COVID times. I don't think I have exact number for you, maybe in the 4 to 5s.
Yeah, would it be?
It's hard to say.
Greg, you got an idea though?
We're seeing 4%.
4%, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so a couple things that I wanted, so the reason that Jeff and I are here tonight is to ask the council if we would like to re-up our intended use plan application. It's just a one pager that we submit online. Actually, in past years, we got Mr. Mayor's signature on it, but the process changed in this last year. It's online submission. It'd be our recommendation to get on that intended use plan. The verbiage is sort of interesting. It says intended use plan, but it doesn't necessarily lock the city into anything. It shows that we're pursuing an option for financing if the legislator is able to come up with a portion, but not all of the 10.9 million.
You said 10.9, we'd have, what was it, 3.9? Could be part of our share. How long would we, 15 or 20 years, would that be out over or what?
PFA is a 20-year loan, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
your share is all gonna, we're throwing numbers out there right now, but I mean, right now, cities applied for or requested bond financing or bonding funds in the order of 10.9 million. It all depends on if the governor signs the bonding bill, there's a couple things, and two, how much the representative is able to get in there as for the city of Good Thunder. And then ultimately that remaining portion would be, if he gets 5 million, then the city of Good Thunder would be responsible for like 6 million. But to answer your question, Mayor, the financing would be PFA, it would be over a 20-year period. And the city of Good Thunder, I think, median household income is above average. And so it does finding grant funds might be difficult to come by. I mean, all cities, they check to verify if you're grant eligible. But it's tough to get grant funds. It's really challenging. So, but likely the city of Good Thunder would be in the running or in for low interest loan. Whatever that rate is. It's typically the standard or the governing rate or the US bond rate, but it's minus a 1 or 2. You try to make it competitive and lower than what you could bond and your long answer to a short question.
I was just trying to think with the financing in there. What kind of debt service would there be there each year for the city for the next 20 years, right? Got that up there?
I do not.
That's great questions. A couple points I want to clarify on before we go too far down that is. One big one is that, so we requested the 10.9. We'll use more hypothetical numbers if the legislator was able to secure 7 per se. So now there's that remaining 3.9.
Yeah.
The city has to build everything we requested to unlock even that 7 million there. What I'm saying is, the water treatment facility well and demolition was 7.5 million. And then the South Halliday Street and the looping and then the Hiller Drive looping. What you can't do is, okay, you requested 10.9, he secured 7. You can't say, well, we just won't build the remaining 3.9. You are entitled to build all that to access even the 7 that he obtained.
You're obligated to do what the project was.
And the thought there is that otherwise the city may come in and request, 50 million to reconstruct their entire town.
Right.
Maybe in the back of their mind, they really only wanted to do 3 blocks and then you were awarded 5 million and that's kind of what you wanted all along. So it just prevents that process from happening. So that's very important to understand, right? If the legislator was able to secure the city 7 million, that would be a huge win. But as a city, you just need to be financially prepared to pick up that 3.9 to make it happen. If that's deemed financially feasible for the city.
And as you touched on, so our options are money through that budget, low interest loans, but you're saying that grants are something that
Well, yeah, the funding agencies, like since you've got the PFA and RD Rural Development, they're another funding option for you. To me, they're very similar, other than RD provides loans over 40 years, so basically it makes your annual payment's a lot less because you're amortizing over 40 years versus 20 years. Typically, I don't like to recommend using RD, well, one for smaller projects. There's a lot of I don't know, red tape, I guess. But there's a lot of extra costs involved and things involved in order to meet those requirements. But when it comes to interest rate, RD and PFA are very similar. And then also affordability, both of them consider affordability for a city. So I've been talking about this for a long time in the city. We've been, I think, inching our rates up. What happens is, I'm not gonna go into details, but a certain percentage of their median household income, residents in the city supposedly can afford to pay a certain percentage of that, it's 1.5%, 1%, whatever it ends up being, 1.5% to 2% of your median household income per month for just water as an example. And that puts your rates, we're just, some cities around here are $50, $60 a month. Well, it's probably more than that now. It's probably $60, $70 a month for water improvements. So as a city, let's say you got a $10 million water plant. And let's say you had to finance we could say 5 million as an example. If you had to finance 5 million, you could choose to do that one of two ways, over 20 years or 40 years. But each funding program does is they'll look at your affordability and say, okay, one, as a city, are you charging up to what the affordable rate is for water? And if you're not, you would have to do that before you even become eligible for grants. So based on your other income or other debt that you have, if you have any other debt, they consider that right off the top. And then they also look at what you're paying based on that with your total project cost minus what you have available in cash minus what you can afford to raise when you raise your rates to cover that additional expense. If there's anything left after that that you wouldn't technically be able to afford, then that would be grant eligible. And I know in the past, like I say, in the past, it becomes real difficult to access those grant funds. I mean, there's cities across the whole state of Minnesota that are, believe it or not, median household income is quite a bit lower. So that means
They're higher on the priority list. I was just wondering to make sure that we cover, are we supposed to be looking for grants? Do you look for the grants? Do we look for other options?
yeah, if you do get, if you're on hijacking your conversation here, but aside from that, a PFA, if you do get it, let's say you do get bonding funds, right? And then if you want to pursue PFA financing to cover that portion of the project that's not covered, part of that process, then you determine what kind of funding you would be eligible for. Would be eligible for grant or low interest loan or a combination of both. But it wouldn't be until that time.
Okay.
That it could be done every time along the way to get an idea, but it's not set in stone until you really moving on something.
Generally, the bonding dollars are good for 3 years, so the city would have some time to kind of react, digest, work with a financial planner to then figure out how would we cover the rest of. And this is all hypothetical contingent on a bonding bill passing and the governor signing a bonding bill and to how much the representative, if any, is able to secure for the city.
Greg was just saying a little bit earlier before you got here that Vernon was very, very lucky. They got a lot of it granted, right?
Yeah, it was state bonding money,
Wow.
Yep.
all of it. Yeah.
I think we've made a strong case as a city. Sue's done a great job. She wrote some handwritten letters to the legislator there and he's been just through council meetings, so. It's positive, but it's.
How does that come out? I mean, you were talking 20-year loan, 40-year loan. At the end, boy, 40-year loan, yeah, it's gonna be lower interest and lower payments, but the finance charges at the end of 40, isn't that gonna like up the cost, you know?
That's always the big weight that the city has to consider, because if you always look at your total interest amount that you've got charged over that 40 years, versus what it would be over 20 years, like anything.
And
But challenge, I think, a lot of times what happens is a lot of communities simply can't afford with the cost of the project, they can't afford the bond or amortize loan money over 20 years and make their payments because it would require their rates to go, sky high as an example. But a lot of times if you can push that over 40 years, then those rates are reasonable and people don't go try to take over the city hall, because come to meetings and, right, no matter what, but it's always gonna be a challenge, and that's one of the things that.
You'd probably almost cut that payment in half going out 40 years versus 20, right? Would it get that close, saying, I know the interest would be up there higher, but you aren't paying as much to start with, so, I mean, it would almost probably cut that debt to the individual or the town probably in half. Say, we had a $200,000 obligation every year, you probably drop that down to 100,000 if you finance it out that far. Is that what their point is of doing that probably?
That's exactly it. That's why RD is there, because rural development, that's the name. A lot of rural communities, most all rural communities, I mean, they're just not they don't have the budgets to finance the same kind of water treatment plant that a larger community will need.
Yeah.
So that's the challenge, and that's why they call it rural, simply because a lot of that goes over 40 years. I did want to recommend though, but I wouldn't recommend using rural development for things like street improvements, that sort of thing. Instead, I would use it for like water towers, things that are gonna be there 40 years later. You wanna put a street improvement under a
No,
40-year loan when you're gonna have to replace it 20 to 25 years anyway. So things like water towers, water treatment facilities, like the current one, the wells, those would be 40 years, no problem, wastewater, that sort of thing. But so you wouldn't want to consider RD for anything. To me, I wouldn't. I'm not a financial advisor, but I mean.
other than the water tower, yeah.
Water tower,
Well.
well, and water treatment plant, that'll be there for years. It gives you, as a city, a few options. But I guess.
Yeah. We hit on, okay, one more point to touch on is when we talk about these PFA dollars. With those dollars when accessible, the PFA is a low interest loan, they're not accessible until after a project is bid and awarded to a contractor. So with that, the city would have to front some engineering and planning costs that go into it too. So just some things to think about. I think the important takeaway is that we have to wait and see what happens with the legislative session, and then the city would look at the financial planner and react how to cover what's left there. And again, the purpose for being here tonight, our recommendations for the city to continue on the intended use plan and show that we're prepared to pick up a local cost if necessary. And the city's by no means committed to using PFA, an opportunity that we're prepared to utilize if necessary.
Do you know when that legislation?
So it's a great question. Mid-May, the legislative session typically closes, and then the governor would sign the bonding bill sometime in June. But it's kind of contingent on how the session goes, though. That would be.
You guys watch those dates pretty close?
Yeah, or just we get feedback, our funding team gets feedback on what's happening at the legislative floor.
Okay.
So right now in our water fund, if I read that right, $183,000. Cash balance summary. So we have been saving money and sewer fund, we've updated that multiple times. There's a lot of lining, and treatment now, but. Which is working great.
Good, it is, okay, good.
So I think, we're in the process of making more money right now instead of spending it, so we could finance engineering there easy enough. Out of it.
It's in a pretty good position, I think. It's all gonna depend on what the bonding bill includes. If the bonding bill comes through eventually, if it's not this year, maybe, typically every 2 years, not this year, hopefully it's 2 years later. Then they approve funding for the city, because then, if that's the case, then you have, it depends on how many dollars you get, of course, but if you get a good chunk of that money up through a bonding bill, grant dollars, you're in a position, you want to be in a position to be able to access other funding you have available. PFA and RD are great funding opportunities rather than market rate. Simply those market rates are a little bit, typically 1 to 2% more than PFA and RD can provide for loans.
The one problem we'd have if it takes a couple of years is our trays to aerate the water are on very borrowed time yet, Brian, right?
Yeah, I was telling them out in the parking lot that the main pipe that goes down the top of above the trays,
Yep.
is no longer attached inside the filter. The framework is rusted away. So when the well pump starts and stops, that whole thing
Shutters.
So we had Javens come out and brace it up a couple of times. They're done. It's over 100 years old.
So say we had to dump in, say we had to go to a spray system and kind of redo the whole filter area there. You know, wouldn't be wise to be dumping in $150,000 and then tear it out in 2 years if we got all in the forward motion. But then you said you can't pull back from the project either. So that's one of these damned if you do, damned if you don't deals, you know, because we probably will have to spend money to get that, to get us by for 2 years if it took that long.
Yeah, if you do have some issues here over the next 2 years, which,
Yeah,
but very well.
might be a deal where we have to call Javens to come in and replace that pipe, brace it up, and
But how about the trays? You know, we need that for aeration.
the trays themselves are in good shape. But
It's
the
the support.
structure that they're holding,
Yeah.
it's angle iron. It was made out of mild steel. So it should have been stainless back in the day, but I suppose they didn't consider that.
Yeah.
And so over the years, it's just gotten thinner and thinner, and from the pump shaking it all the time, it's not.
So they could probably rebuild that structure also.
I mean, we could get a bid and have it look at it, but
Yeah. But that could be a problem for us before this ever gets resolved or
Right.
Or get through a motion, yeah.
And the city.
technically, according to the Department of Health, we have to add chlorine and fluoride. We don't have to add chlorine. That's something we decided to do. But, you don't have to, South Bend doesn't treat their water at all. It's from the well to the distribution system. So if it would fail, there's no fines, it's just people are gonna complain about their rusty clothes and
yeah, but it smells. The
Yeah.
water smells. And
It does.
when you aerated
I'm
it.
just saying, in a pinch,
Yeah.
we had to, if it failed and it took a month to fix,
Yeah.
you can distribute raw water without any fines or penalties as long as you meet the Department of Health standards for fluoride, and we chlorinate, so
High in
people
manganese.
chlorine,
High in manganese.
manganese, yeah, and iron.
And,
It's a fairly deep well, but it's still pretty high in iron and manganese, so.
and when you're on, and which we have, I was counting up here, I think we have six dead end fire hydrants, you know, that are not looped. And the one on North Minor Street, my son has a filter about this big around, this tall. He just changed it. That thing is rust slime about an 1/8 inch thick on it. So I was just wondering, should a guy on dead end fire hydrant or water mains, should you like crack that once a month to get that sediment out of that pipe?
Mm,
You know, because that filter is,
It just stirs everything up. You can't just do one. You gotta start at the tower and work your way out when you flush mains. If you just start doing one, it's not a good practice.
yeah, even though that pipe laying here only has residents taken off of it.
Yeah,
And there's more settlement at that pipe because it's not got that flow going through and around.
when you open up the hydrant anywhere in town, it's gonna pull water from the tower all the way out to where that is. And you're gonna stir everything up between the tower and that, whatever one you opened up. It's better to flush everything out to the outsides.
Are the
I don't know.
mains flushed?
Hmm?
Are the mains flushed?
Every
Yeah,
quarter,
twice a
right?
year,
I see.
Rainfall.
Should we ever up that to once a quarter?
I don't think you need to.
Well, you need a filter, you'd want it.
I wouldn't be able to in the winter either.
Because if you didn't have that filter in there, you'd be drinking that rust.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be able to flush in the winter months anyway.
Well, no,
You'd have an ice
yeah.
rink.
Just not
You'd have to go.
standard practice.
I think you're still gonna see that manganese in the water, even if you are flushing more often, because that's always in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're collecting it and seeing it on a filter simply because it's being filtered. Whereas most people, it's too fine, you're not seeing it. I mean, you might see a little bit, if you don't have a water softener as an example, you'll be able to see some, rust and red develop on your sinks where every water splashes and evaporates.
They had this situation in Pemberton, so they added phosphate, polyphosphate
Yeah.
to sequester the iron and keep it in solution. So it didn't drop out and end up on people's filters. But do you want to add another chemical to our water? I don't think so.
all right.
So we just need to give the okay then to continue or to renew our request.
Yeah, to
Is it-
renew our request to remain on the IUP, which is the intended use plan.
Any other-
And that's something we would take care of, as an online submittal, and we could let you know. So,
Okay.
mhm.
It doesn't have to come from the city.
Doesn't have to come from the city, no.
So.
Anybody else got any questions for Joe or Jeff? If not, then somebody want to make a motion then to renew the
Intended use.
intended use.
Plan. IUP, intended use plan,
IUP.
intended use plan, IUP.
IUP, okay. Somebody want to make that a motion?
I'll make it a motion.
Someone second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
I,
I oppose, motion carried. All right, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Go get some money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
push.
I think it's gonna be very difficult, the way the finances are in the state of Minnesota. Where did all that other money go? Just wondering for a friend.
The whole other conversation.
Yep. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we have
See you soon.
Burkhart here. Greg is here tonight to go over our record keeping, bookkeeping, management.
Got it. Yep. Great, thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for having me. As Mayor mentioned, I am Greg Burkhart, represent the firm that performed the financial audit for the city of Good Thunder over your records for 2024. And tonight's culmination of that work, we're gonna I'd like to walk the council through the audit process. We help provide clarity in what exactly we do, why we do it. We're gonna talk about some different responsibilities that are held related to financial reporting. Some brief results for the audit. There's a handful of things professional standards require that I communicate to the council. We'll touch on some of those, and then I'll finalize the report with a brief overview of the financial condition of the state. I know many of you have sat through a presentation of mine in the past. For those of you the first time, I'd just like to let you know that I want to keep this as informal as possible. So if there are questions that come up as I'm going through my presentation, please stop me and I'm happy to discuss those, answer any questions you may have. If I don't touch on something that is of interest to the council, I'd be happy to address those questions when I finish. So I do have a PowerPoint that Sue's gonna run for me. You guys all have the printed slides in front of you as well. So what I'd like to do then is get started on slide number 2. You guys will see that at the bottom of page 1. Slide 2 describes the responsibilities that are held related to financial reporting. Okay, so management of the city holds certain responsibilities as well as your audit firm. So as we look at that slide, management essentially is required to make all the accounting decisions that are necessary to put those financial statements in the condition that you see them in your financial report. All right, in addition to that, management of the city is also required to have processes, procedures in place that will safeguard your assets, whether that be cash in the bank, your investments, even your equipment, infrastructure, vehicles. You need a process, you need policies to ensure that those items are safe. Your audit firm, my firm's responsibility essentially relates around the 3 different reports that we provide over those financial numbers. We provide a financial opinion, trying to determine are the numbers reported accurate? We also provide a report on those policies and procedures that the city has in place. We attempt to determine, are they appropriate? Do you have the right policies based on the facts and circumstances that the city finds itself in? If we find something that doesn't quite measure up, or we notice limitations or things that are missing, we provide a report that describes what we found, as well as recommendations to improve that. And finally, we provide a report on your compliance with Minnesota law. The state auditor requires us to evaluate 7 broad categories of compliance. We spend an awful lot of time during the conduct of the audit, going through those checklists, sampling items, looking at invoices, contracts, those sorts of items to determine if the city did indeed follow all of those compliance requirements. If we find something, we report on it, and then we provide some recommendations for improvement. We move over to slide number 3. Slide 3 will briefly summarize the results of the audit this year. So starting on the left-hand side there, under financial opinion, it states that the city has received a qualified opinion on your governmental activities. Okay. Qualified is not what you want to hear. That means there is something missing. And in this case, what is missing is the representation of your fire relief pension fund or fire relief pension activity. We discussed this over the years. I'm sure you guys are somewhat familiar with that. I do support the decision you've made. So there's some accounting standards that require the city to incorporate the activity the fire relief has as it relates to their fire department pensions into your city report. The reason for that is because you do hold the responsibility for any shortfalls that might be found in that, in their investment accounts. Okay. You've chosen not to go forward with the cost to get the actuary reports and whatnot. So we did qualify the government activities. We did, however, the next element listed there did give you a clean opinion on everything else. All right, so the city complied with all the accounting rules, all the responsibilities that are necessary with your general fund, your water, sewer, everything else that you have in place, except for that fire relief piece. Okay, so those are good results. That is something that you guys should be proud of. The middle section on slide number 3 describes our report over your internal controls.
Can I ask a question, Greg? Do you just need to get a report from their auditors to your company to get that in compliance, or do you have to do that auditing of that relief association, right?
Not quite. So the relief, I'm certain the relief has an audit, or they do some type of reporting to the state auditors.
We gotta do it every year.
Yeah, what we actually need is you would need to contract with an actuarial firm.
Yeah, I remember.
And they take a look at the investments, the fire department members, their relative ages, the benefit levels that you have, and they try to forecast how much is going to be paid out in pension benefits. And they take the investments related to the liability and they do some math on it. And they give us a number. It's called a net pension liability. We would then incorporate that into your financial statement. CPA firms are not allowed to do that work. You must be a licensed actuary to do it.
So how far out do they go? Just per year? Like, or do they look at it like 5 years and, oh yeah, you've got 8 guys gonna retire and you're gonna be insolvent in 5 years? Is that what they're looking for?
It's 30 years or more.
Oh,
You know, it's very similar to what's happening with PERA. You guys, your employees contribute into the PERA plan. PERA is much bigger than this. You know, State Board of Investments has, $1 billion that they invest on behalf of several public employee groups. They contract with an actuary that provides the information we need to put that information on there.
do
So it's
we,
very similar. So there are 2 main actuaries in the state of Minnesota that do that type of work. I don't know offhand what they charge. It's kind of strange how it works, but it's an every other year sort of report.
is that cost to the city?
Most likely it would be. I don't believe that the fire relief would be on board with paying for that. It can be $3,000 to $5,000. And really, it doesn't have much of an impact on the fire relief because the state auditor doesn't require them to do that type of work. It's the city's report that would benefit from this actuary.
State auditor, we gotta report what we have. They look at all the numbers and they come back and say, hey, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, and they'll tell that we're got enough money to, if something never happened in all of us at one time, God forbid, but
Yep.
that there's enough in there, and they look at that every year, so.
Yeah. it's-
But that doesn't satisfy
No, it
you.
doesn't. Yeah, because really what they're doing is they take the number of members that you have, your benefit levels, and they just do a simple multiplication. And they say, here's your investments, here's your liability. If everyone paid out today, you have enough. And I think you're referring to like a required contribution from the city that would supplement where your funding levels are. So there's some calculations they do, but it doesn't meet the requirements of one of the accounting standards related to that. You know, and there's some valuable information that can be gleaned from that work. If it's important to the city, we can certainly get some contact information for some actuaries in the state of Minnesota that can do that work. They're swamped right now, so they certainly couldn't do that within the next 6 months. You'd want to get with them right away. The other piece that could potentially trip you up, and I know this has been a problem in the past, the fire relief hasn't always been timely with their reports. I know there's been years in the past where the required reports didn't get to the state auditor in time, that delayed the fire relief aid that the city received and then turn over to the relief, and that's happened. If that were the case, even if you contracted with an actuary, it wouldn't be done in time for you to report that information on your city audit. So that's something to keep in mind as well. I'm not suggesting that's happening now, but I know it has in the recent past. Really just it's a decision the city will need to make. Are you comfortable with a qualified opinion on your government activity? So you have a clean report on everything else except for as it relates to that fire relief.
Well, the city in reality backs everything that the fire department does.
Yes.
You know, we are the backbone of them, you
Yep.
know. And like you say, if there was a shortfall because of retirees, that's where we as a city would have to make that up.
Correct. And that's why it is a required element of your city report
And you think that's $3,000 to $5,000?
in that ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And would that be done yearly or every other year then?
Every year. So they would do a full actuarial evaluation year one. Year two, they would, what they call roll it forward. So they would just make some estimates on year two, so the fee would be much less. And then year three, another full actuary report would be created and they kind of leapfrog it, so it's every other year, but that information would need to be provided to us annually so that we could update your records.
And that's total decision of the city council.
It likely would be a cost that the city would have.
So that actuary audit would be good enough for the fire department then, because we're dishing $6+ grand out a year.
For your accounting work, yeah.
It'd be that's two separate animals, right? We're talking about.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
completely separate. I'm not sure what your asset levels are. They have recently changed the thresholds to get a actual audit.
Because once you go over that threshold, if you drop below it, you still have
You'll
to
have to.
doing an audit every year.
Yeah, so it wouldn't impact the reporting that you're doing. If you are getting a full audit, it's unlikely it would impact that. I'm not sure if your audit firm would incorporate that. They certainly could. But it would benefit the city so that you could better monitor the performance of that fire relief pension on a more complete basis, rather than just looking at, here's our investment balance, here's our total liability if everybody was paid out.
We don't even give it a, or do we? To the city from your fireman's relief?
Sue needs to sign off on it annually as well before they can certify the aid.
Okay, so
It's supposed to be to the city by August every year. And like I said, they've missed that mark, and it does happen. There are other fire departments that don't quite make that reporting deadline. So, like you say, legally, by law, the city is required to meet any shortfalls that are there.
We already got the paperwork into the auditors and they put extensions on it. You know how busy you are.
Yeah,
That's the holdup.
It's done in the summer. You know, so, but things happen where some of those get missed. If you miss that certification deadline, it is in September. You end up getting paid out in March, so you miss 6 months. But I know, so there was one year that I think you guys got your fire aid 2 years in one, essentially. So.
Could you give us a list of the information that we need or
I can
what is
give you,
suggested? I mean, it does not be tonight.
the
but-
actuary, there's two. It's Hildy, which I think they've just changed their name, so I'd have to get you, and Van Eyck Wharton. And they're basically the only two I've seen operate in the state that does that type of work.
And I'm just saying kind of the list of whatever we would need
Yep.
to get this on the level.
Mhm.
And if we had all the information and seeing what it was gonna take and what it was gonna cost to get to that point, then we could make a
Better. more
make a
effective vision.
educated guess or a decision, not a guess.
Yeah.
Make an educated decision
Okay.
on,
Whether or not you want to go forward with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can certainly get some information to Sue.
I think that would be a,
It is nice to see. Again, they look on a much longer time horizon than what you would get from the fire form or the SC form that gets prepared. So if there are any trouble spots out there, you know, and then also when the fire department shows up and they want a benefit increase, you know, that actual report could certainly support a benefit increase. You know, if you're well funded, you can prove it by that actuary that might allow you to increase your benefit levels beyond what you would normally think would be acceptable.
It would make your report more complete also.
But
yeah,
Yep.
we'd get rid of this.
you wouldn't have a qualification, and you'd have a full clean audit report every year.
Okay.
So, and most cities, we work with maybe 3 to 4 that have gone down this route that have said, hey, we don't want to implement that. But eventually they come around and they say, hey, let's just clean it up, you know, and it may benefit you if you end up with some rural development financing, you know, those are federal dollars. It would be ideal if you can keep your report as clean as possible when the federal government starts looking at some of those things. I don't know if it really makes much of a difference whether or not you receive that funding. But it can complicate things if you have a modification in your audit opinion.
Okay.
That's a great question, though. So, continuing on, I think we were talking about internal controls. The limitations, our report, that's the middle column of that slide number 3. We did see 3 areas where the city could improve. That's really how I want you to look at this, not necessarily something wrong, but some improvement could be made. The 3 you see listed there, material audit adjustments, auditor prepared financials, limited segregation of duties are the same 3 that you had in the previous year. And you guys have had these same limitations for several years, matter of fact. It doesn't mean they're not important, but some of these are difficult to remove simply due to the size of your office staff. You know, Sue basically handles all the accounting responsibilities. And ideally, you'd like separate individuals to handle these important responsibilities, not necessarily because you're worried about something going missing. It's more so errors can be worked into your financial records and not notice. And that's really the important piece of the segregation. So the last 2 that you see listed there are really just a consequence of the size of your staff. The material audit adjustments relates to a lot of the work that we have to do to get the records in the condition that you see them today. You know, so important, yes, but you know, something I think at some point you've got to live with a little bit of risk. You got to live with, you know, what are we willing to accept? And my view is accept these limitations. However, continue to stay actively involved in the financial condition of this or the financial affairs of the city. That's going to be your best line. Okay. Then finally on slide 3, under compliance findings, I am thrilled to report there were none this year. So that is fabulous. That's probably, if you were to ask me what was the best result this year, I would say that without question. Being able to come through a compliance audit, do the evaluations that we do, the digging that we look into, and get a clean report is not something that happens on accident. You know, that is everybody playing their part, being conscientious, being aware. That's really the first step, is knowing what these compliance pieces are and handling those. And we didn't find anything that caused us to believe that there was any non-compliance. So Excellent, excellent results.
That's great news.
Perfect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Sue.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good.
And John, I think John, it's them two, they get together all the time, and I think they're getting us to where we need to be.
Yeah,
I
it's important.
appreciate both of them doing that.
Very much so.
Okay, on to slide 4. So slide 4 contains those required communications at professional standards. Demand that we discuss with governance. I'm not gonna spend an awful lot of time in any of the information on this slide, other than to just encourage you, we do provide another report, a separate report from the audit. It's called a management letter, and I did email that to Sue. She has an electronic version. It does go over this information contained on slide number 4 in much greater detail than the time that I have allotted this evening. So I would ask you all to take a look at that, because you'll learn quite a bit about what we're seeing here without chewing up most of your evening to do it. The only thing I will point out on this slide, however, is under significant accounting policies. You see there was adoption of a new accounting standard. So GASB 100 was implemented this year. This standard it relates to error corrections and changes that happen in your financial statements. Okay, so if you didn't think financials were scary enough, they've gotten even scarier. That we now have ghost columns in your financials. And these are, and that was my only joke, by the way. So you gotta laugh a little bit. I'm an auditor, I'm not supposed to be funny, but we have ghost columns. And basically what it is, it's helping you reconcile last year's audit to this year's audit. So some things change from time to time where you have a new accounting fund or one of your accounting fund goes to a different area of the report. These ghost columns help kind of the breadcrumbs of where to go and what happened.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's gonna be in there, so you guys may see that. Don't be alarmed, it is supposed to be there, so. All right, continuing on there, my punchline didn't go over quite like I had hoped. Hey,
It just took us a minute. We got,
We don't want to laugh at you. We want to laugh with you.
at me, that's.
No. Want to laugh with you.
All right, so that is the bulk of the legalese, if you will, related to the audit. Okay, and I think you guys had excellent results there, very happy. What I want to do now is, yeah, we are on the next slide, Sue. What I want to do now is touch on the city's financial trends. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to look at where was the city a handful of years ago? How are we looking today? And we're gonna try to use that information to maybe forecast where you're going to be in the near future. Okay, so if you move over to slide number 6. What we have on this slide is a 5-year representation of the city's cash and investment balance. Okay, in the chart there, you see blue bars, we have orange bars. The blue bars represent what we call your governmental activities. Okay, when you hear me say that, I want you to think general fund. Right, it does include the fire department, it includes some of your other capital reserves, but it's predominantly the general fund. Okay, the orange bars are your business type activities. That is your water, sewer, and refuse fund. Okay, so as I look at this chart, and let's just maybe focus in on the blue bars, you know, you can see that the cash balances sort of ebb and flow as we move from 2020 into 21, 22, and 23. They kind of stabilized over the past 2 years, 22 and 3. And then there was a little bit of a dip at the end of 24. Okay, so from 23 to 24, your governmental activities cash dropped approximately $200,000. Okay, the main reason for that had to do with transfers that you guys approved to help finance some of the construction work that was going on in that water and sewer fund.
Yep.
Okay. The orange bars, those business types, again, a little bit of the wiggle back and forth year over year. However, the last 3 years, there has been some fairly consistent results. 22, 3, and 4, you're seeing steady, and that's really what you want. Those cash balances are kind of, they hit that equilibrium, if you will, and actually up slightly over the year, about $30,000 from 23 into the end of 24. Okay, so even though the governmental activities slipped back a little bit, I feel like your reserves are very good. If we look at the table at the bottom of slide 6, what we call days of reserve. You guys have likely seen this before. And what this is just a representation of the city's cash balances at the end of the year. We take your year-end cash balance, we divide it by your average annual expenses, then we multiply it by 365. So what that does is it converts those cash balances into how many days can you operate under average annual conditions, okay? We all know there isn't anything average about government. Your expenditures can ebb and flow from month to month, you know, but that's why reserves are very important. So if we look at, and we have the same general breakdown, the governmental, the blue line, the business type is the orange. If we just take a look at the 2024 column, you can see that your governmental activities, even though there was a decrease, still maintains 600 days of reserves under average conditions. And that's approximately 20 months. Okay, your business type, although there is a lot less cash available, but your expenses are much smaller in those business type activities, you have 862 days of reserves, which is approximately 28 months. You know, so although there were some decreases, we're very comfortable and we're very pleased with the level of reserves that the city has based on, you know, your average expenses over the year. So very, very good. A lot of the cities that we work with do not have these level of reserves. You know, it's typical to see 12 to 14 months in the general fund. And quite honestly, the utility funds or the business type, 6 to 10. You know, so you far outpace that, and that's important. Obviously, as you're, you know, you listen to your engineers today tell you that you might have to float several dollars to pay some of their engineering design invoices before you'll ever receive any money from PFA or that state bonding. And make no mistake, it will be sizable. You could be looking at upwards of $500,000 that you may need to pay. So having reserves is going to be vital. Okay, so I would start planning now for that eventuality. You know, whether you do RD, PFA, state bonding money, none of that can get put in place until the design is made. That's where a lot of those costs from that engineer are going to be generated.
Do you audit our refuge fund?
Oh, yeah.
So we hardly make any money on that, right?
It's basically a break-even operation. Yeah.
That's what it's always been. So as a city offering that, should that margin go up a little bit? Should we make a little more money off our garbage instead of just a break even? Because, you know, when we have cleanup days, we take that out of general fund.
Yes, you do.
And this year we're trying to do it 3 times.
Yeah.
And we're gonna probably spend, what? $15,000. And that would put that in a negative if you took it out of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Years when that happened too. So in our advice to you guys were to load it to the general fund, because it's really just
it's a service,
the service that you provide.
Yeah. But should we be making a little bit more on our?
Agreed. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely. I think the rates in your refuse fund likely need to increase because it has been carrying a deficit cash balance for some time now. And we'll get to that. You kind of getting a little bit ahead of me, Robert, but there is a deficit in the refuse, and I think it stands to reason to look at those rates, you know, compare them against what you're being charged from your hauler for what you're collecting from your residents. And there is a mismatch there. With that.
Yeah.
So, all right, great question here. So let's continue on. We only have a couple more slides to go through. Slide number 7, top of page 4. This is a representation of the city's general fund. And it's your fund balances of your general fund, okay? And audit firms, financial managers, financial advisors, they look at your general fund and they focus in on that for several reasons. But one of the biggest reasons is your general fund essentially is the main operating fund, right? So the majority of your expenses are there. That's where your property tax levy, a lot of your aids, and evaluating the health of the general fund gives some really good clues on the health of the city. Okay, so your fund balance is a representation of your net worth. Well, the general fund's net worth. So when you hear me say fund balance, I want you to think net worth, equity, okay? So what we see in front of us on this chart is a 5-year representation of the city's fund balances. All right, it's separated into 2 broad categories. The red bars represent total net worth. The green represents what we call or what we label as unassigned. Okay, a lot of terms I'm throwing at you, but unassigned is important. And that the reason it's important is because the city council and management has discretionary control over those fund balances. There are fund balances that you hold that you can't spend. You got that permanent improvement revolving loan fund. That was generated by restricted resources. You can only spend that money on those purposes. What we see here, this green bar represents money, resources that the city can spend however you see fit. Whether it's to move some money over to the water and sewer fund to help out with some of those improvements that are being made, whatever it is, any legal purpose, let's put it that way. So as we evaluate that unassigned or that discretionary money that you hold, we look at that as a ratio of your overall budgets and your annual spending. Okay, so we take your unassigned fund balance, divide it by your budget and your overall spending, and we come up with a ratio. A lot of the financial advisors, entities that rate cities' debt, you guys haven't had to go through a debt rating yet, you may, depending on what shakes out with this project. They have a certain ratio that they would like to see maintained in your general fund as it relates to your unassigned, and that is 75%. So if we go to the table below that chart, that very first row, that fund balance percentage, that is exactly what we have done here. So we've taken your unassigned, divided it by that your annual spending. So for every year, so what they're saying is you should at least have 75% exceeding. The state auditor has a different evaluation. They think, now we want to see you between 40 and 50%. I personally feel that's a little bit low. I'm on board with that 75 or greater. And as we look at the previous 5 years, you have maintained that standard each and every year, with 2020 being the lowest that you've seen. You know, so again, there's ebbs and flows in that amount, and it really does sometimes relate to the amount of spending in that one particular year. But you've done a fabulous job maintaining that level of reserve or unassigned equity. Okay, so that general fund is sitting very good. All right, I'm very happy with what we're seeing there. As we move forward here, so on to slide number 8, the bottom of page 4, we're continuing with the analysis of your general fund. And what you see here is your budget and actual. All right, so this is your profit and loss statement. Okay, the money that the city brought in and how you spent that money. So we start at the very top, that blue highlighted section, revenues. You can see your budget, actual, and your variance with that budget. So your roadmap or your projections were 670,000 in revenues. You actually received 775,000. So you're about 100,000 over your projections, which is, you're going to go over any budget, you might as well go over on your revenue. The majority of those variances related to some state aids the city received that were not budgeted, as well as some fire department contracts with your neighboring townships. It comprised the majority of that variance. As we continue on in this slide, we go to the next section below, starting with that orange highlighted area, those expenditures. Okay, again, we break those down into 2 categories, current and capital outlay. Current expenses, I want you to think operations. That's operating expenses, okay? Capital outlay is what it sounds like. That's equipment. Those are costs or purchases that are going to last more than 1 year, all right? We go one more row below that, your total expenditures. You can see you budgeted exactly the same as your revenue budget. Your actual, and then your variance. So you guys were approximately $37,000 below budget overall in your general fund, which is great. That helped support some other operations, some other activities that the city was doing. If we continue down that center column, down to the green highlighted area, you see it labeled as change in fund balance. In my world, in the governmental world, we don't say profit loss, we say change in fund balance, but that's what this is. that bottom row, that's your profit and loss for the year, and you can see that number in parentheses, $184,000. That's a loss for the year, okay? However, that loss was entirely caused by the approximately $300,000 that you did provide to that water and sewer fund
We transferred
that you transferred.
out of the general.
Yep, so had that transfer not happened, your general fund would have seen a significant increase on the order of what you guys have seen in the recent past.
And are we, I know we talked about this, are we trying to pay the general back out of the water sewer fund, you know, $5,000 a year for the next whatever, or are we not? It's
I don't
just,
think it was a loan from what I saw. It was a permanent transfer.
Okay.
To support that expenditure.
because I know we talked about that one time that we could take and
Yes.
budget 5,000 a year until we paid the general back
Yeah.
from these entities that we put the money into.
Yep.
But we just gave it a loan, clean slate, done.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Remember that for next year, John.
Yeah, it is an option that you have. Okay, so continuing on. On to page 5, slide number 9. What we're gonna talk about on this slide is your enterprise funds. And you guys have heard me describe them as business type activities already. I don't mix and match those terms to confuse anyone. We do that for a very specific reason. These business type activities, we use that term because these activities, water, sewer, and refuse, need to operate like a business.
Yeah.
Okay, there aren't many businesses in the world that will last very long if they don't generate some type of profit. So these are profit motivated. They need to be autonomous. They need to stand on their own and generate profit, which is good. And I want you guys to evaluate the profit loss of those funds. However, profit loss can be misleading, right? There's a lot of journal entries that audit firms perform that impact your profit loss, but don't have any impact on what you have in the bank. Okay, so what you see on this slide is a representation of your cash balances. What happened to cash for these activities? You can't pay your bills with profit, you pay them with cash. So it's vital that you evaluate cash flow. When these two gentlemen were speaking about bonding 20 years versus 40 years, you know, I do agree with what they're saying as far as the infrastructure that you put in place, but cash flow is vital. You know, determining, can we afford the bond payment? Don't worry about the total amount of debt that you're gonna hold. Worry about what type of debt service you have. And that's what's gonna be important for you.
And that's that one there that Sue provides each month.
Is that,
It says, cash balances summary.
yeah,
Council, it has,
absolutely.
this is the one,
Now,
yeah.
what you can do, and what this slide really represents, this is an annual slide, but you can do this cash analysis from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, beginning of the month, end of the month, you know, and it's easy to see. Did your cash go up or did it go down? If it went up, you had a better period or year or quarter than if it had gone down, right? And if it does, you need to evaluate and ask yourself what's going on there. So if we just start looking at slide 9 here, and we start at the very top, that blue highlighted section, it says cash flow provided by operating activities. Okay, let me explain what that means. That really, boil it down into a nutshell, that is the purpose for which that fund is in existence. Okay, so let's think about the water fund, for instance. Your water fund is there to provide water to your residents. In order to do that, there's a lot of costs that are involved. You have wages to pay, you have chemicals, you have electricity to pump it into the tower. Because of those costs, you have to charge your residents a certain amount.
Yep.
Okay, to cover those bills. So when you charge your residents for the water you delivered, you collect on those and you pay your bills, whatever is left after you pay all your bills, when you've collected that money from your customers, is called cash flow. And what you ideally want to do is ensure that you have enough left to pay some other things that are very important to those utilities as well. And those are listed down below there. So two of the most important are equipment purchases, infrastructure improvements, and then repaying debt for prior work that has been performed. So that's why I think it's very important for you to estimate and evaluate the cash flow that's going to be generated based on your rates, based on your expenses, so that you can purchase this equipment, improve the infrastructure, and repay your debt. So if we just look at the water fund, Water fund had 43,000 roughly of cash flow after paying all your bills. How did you use that money? So some of it, you see that interfund activity, that's money that came into the water fund from the general. And used 113, almost 114,000 to purchase capital equipment. I believe those were water meters, is that correct? Yep, several water meters that were purchased, okay? Overall cash is down $8,000. Would you care to guess what the profit and loss statement shows? Oh, good thing I know, because I can tell you, $93,000 of profit in the water fund. So if you just solely look at your profit and loss, it's a really good year. However, your cash balances did go down 8,000. Okay, so that's some of those differences that I was talking about. Let's take a look at the sewer fund. The sewer fund had almost 34,000 of cash flow. Interfund activity, 261 came from the general fund. Ended up using on, I believe it was Holiday Street and some phosphorus mitigation or something to that effect. $267,000 for those activities. Ended the year up 28,000 in cash. Okay, you go to your profit and loss statement, the sewer fund had profit of $267,000. That's quite a mismatch. You know, you mismatch your profit loss quite a bit with what's going on with your cash balances. So again, it's vital. If we look at the refuse fund, the refuse isn't doing much activity. You can see that it's a negative cash flow. So what that tells you right off the bat is your bills are more than what you collected from your customers. So there is something not quite right with your rates that you're charging in that refuse, and it's just continuing to drive deficits, okay? So I would encourage you to take a look and see what's happening there and make a correction to those rates so that at least you break even. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Mr. Mayor, you want to build a little bit into that reserve or into that refuse, but it's ultimately just to collect trash, you know, and you just want to break even at a minimum, okay?
So how would, we take what we pay the landfill and what we take in, and to, when, say, LJP comes to us, they have to present, we have to, have a motion to raise that for their bill that they're presenting for the next year
Yeah, their
contract. So for the city ourselves, how do we justify going up? You know, do we just say that, hey, we're going in the whole $6,600 a year and we need to do this much more each quarter? How do we make a motion on that?
I think it's when you set your rates annually, you know, do you evaluate, do you do any rate adjustments with your utility?
I don't think we do anything until their contract comes due.
Well, we did the first time this past fall. Sue and I worked on water sewer because we were going from the quarterly to monthly. And because also right now we don't qualify for any of those grants that Burkhart or that Bolton and Mink were talking about because we're charging way less than what whoever the higher power is that decides that we're not changing or charging up. But anyway, so we did the first part. I did notice on the refuge when we were looking at that last, so we just haven't taken any action on it yet.
We did raise, because Tom figured it out when Tom was still on.
Okay,
We did raise, no, we did raise the garbage, or we did
Okay.
raise it.
okay.
And there are some costs on their invoices. I don't know if they put in tipping charges or there is some variability there, you know.
One is the weight that the trucks go in to dump. So that, I mean, 1 month it can be minimal,
Very-
Yeah.
the next
So
month
it's
it can be
not a
high.
Strict, I mean, they have their base fee, but you're absolutely, there is some variability there. I
Right.
think that's what's it's not being returned back through in your rates that you're charging for refuse.
Right.
You know, so you might want to just take a look at it, start gaining some of that ground back so that it's not a losing activity anymore. At least it's at break even.
But do we have to have a motion to say we raise it 25 cents? I don't know how you would say that, a pound or 10 cents a pound?
What is the rate structure? I don't know offhand.
They just charge so much for the
I think it's for the
garbage can.
containers.
Yeah, it's a flat fee per
fee.
container.
Okay, so
But
it's
the
flat
dump-
fee per container, but the containers are weighing more than what the container is budgeted for,
So
or factored for?
there's two charges. One is LJP And that's the containers,
trucking.
everything else. And LJP is also charged through Minnesota Waste or whatever
Yep.
to dump wherever they dump it.
Yeah.
And that's by ton or by,
That's a
I think it just went up last year to $101 or $102 a ton. So that's the variable rate. So I mean, 1 month we can maybe we have 10 tons.
I wanna say it's probably about 4,000 a month
Yeah,
that we pay in garbage,
Yeah.
roughly.
And what do you bring in? You know, that's what you.
Right,
So you need to look at the number of containers you have, the number of
Yep.
residents that are paying in and ensure that you're hitting that 4,000, maybe 4,100, because there's gonna be, you know, delinquents, things of that nature.
I just had a conversation with LJP and they hadn't reviewed us since 2018 on how many services we have in town. So that's on my list, to try to figure out how to run that report,
okay.
figure it out.
So if we did raise the rates not too long ago, you wouldn't see that, you know.
Not in this report. If it was in 25, no, we would not see that. And to your answer, to your question, Mr. Mayor, I would say, how do you raise them? Well, I would put together an official rate structure or a rate sheet and evaluate it and say, you know, we need to make a modification to this rate sheet. Go through the process. I don't believe there's anything beyond a motion, you know, to approve that rate sheet. You'd want to obviously put it on the website or publish it however you publish your official rate structures for all different fees that you have, and then implement it on that next billing cycle.
You'd
Most cities
almost,
will do it annually. They'll do it in that January timeframe.
you'd almost have to break down the trucking and the other charge of John with the weight.
Yeah.
And then see what that costs you per month and adjust it accordingly then. You get them two expenses.
Yeah, I don't know if you could do it dynamically in that manner.
Would you do it over the whole month, a year of
I
24?
think you would.
Take an
yeah.
average of the months, take
Yeah,
an
you
average
gotta
of it.
hope at some
break
point
it down.
it'll even out.
Yeah.
And maybe LJP could assist with that, like, what's going on? Why are we seeing large spikes? I don't know.
You can see it after Christmas.
Yeah,
Everybody's
Right.
dumpster is full.
yeah.
But you guys do a spring cleanup, so you wouldn't think there'd be a lot of excess, but
Well, we haven't, did we do one last year?
Yeah.
We used
Yeah,
to
but
have
it-
all filled last year.
It's not as successful when it's not curbside. And they have to load it up and take it to an area.
Yeah.
The curbside goes over way better. You know, because you only gotta take it out 50, 60 feet.
Sure.
Instead of putting it in a vehicle and hauling it down somewhere else.
Yeah, but it's a lot cheaper so that the
Mhm.
hauler doesn't gotta go around the entire city and pick that.
Yep.
So,
But we're gonna try a couple different things this year to see.
okay. Yeah, so overall, I think the utility funds, these business type enterprise activities are doing well. You know, notwithstanding some of the challenges that the refuse fund has incurred over the past few years. Next slide is the audit team. Myself, Greg Burkhart, I'm kind of the leader on the audit team. The other three smiling faces you see there, pretty much did all the work. I get to come out here and take all the credit, so. We enjoy coming out here to Cliff Thunder, spending time with Sue, and looking through the records. You've got a good operation. You should be very proud of where you're sitting financially and the results that you had here on your audit. The clean report minus that fire relief, no compliance, things turned out really good.
So this is our best audit in quite some time, isn't it?
Things are moving in the right direction.
Good.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and there's so many factors that tie into that, you know, I
Right.
think just the results of the audit opinion, internal control, those sorts of things. Yes, you did very good. The finances are in good shape, minus a few challenges that we discussed here, but yeah, things are looking really good. I think you
Good.
guys are well positioned to tackle this enormous project that you have in front of you, you know, so.
If you found a medium-sized cash discrepancy, what action do you take? Where do you go with
By
that?
that.
Pardon?
Medium size, I'm not sure. You know, if we found, if you're saying fraud,
Yep,
if we found fraud, what we would do is bring it to the council's attention.
yep.
You know, it would really depend on who committed the fraud. If it was Sue, we certainly wouldn't discuss it with her. We'd bring it to the council. If it was an employee, it would start with management. It would come to the council and then it likely would escalate from there. There are some requirements as far as reporting it to the county and to the state auditor.
But it would chances are 99% of the time, it would come to the council first.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, council would have an opportunity to address it, absolutely. And
Uh,
based on how the council addressed that concern or issue would then dictate further action.
that's never happened over the course of quite a few years.
Had it happen a few, in Good Thunder, no, but
Right.
it does happen, you know, every once in a while you run into things. We hear about other cities that have had issues as well and. But no, I don't. That's happened in cities.
Payroll. Top notch.
You're doing pretty good.
Yeah, perfect.
Didn't find any penalties. I think, he's got a pretty good handle on the payroll process.
Yep. Timely payments, everything all,
Nothing late to the state.
Not a thing, yeah, nothing that we came across. Can't be 100% sure on every bill, but we do randomly sample and we did not locate, we didn't see, I think last year there might have been a late payment here or there. And it does creep up, that's one of the ones that I would be less concerned about. You know, if you mail a letter to your neighbor across the street. Gotta go to Minneapolis,
Yep.
comes all the way back down here to deliver across the street, so. There is some delays that are inherent with the mail service, but and we are seeing that more and more, it's creeping up just because. Post office has been having some challenges.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. But overall, very good report, great result.
on this, you want to look at this, Greg? This says JE payroll, and then it's 3,100 in parentheses there.
Journal entry.
Yeah, the payroll module automates the. She runs payroll, pushes a button, it comes over into your accounting software. And that is represented by this. So you're always gonna see negatives in here. And that should represent the total payroll for the month or whatever period is related.
But you'll always see a negative because that is our payroll for the two entities.
So if you look at the negatives are in this manner, they're outgoings.
Yeah.
Of receipts, you know, receipts are what's coming in, the service is getting out. Here's your total balance. So that's what you want to be referring to as you look at these activities. And
So like I say, when Jeff
there's a
was
refuge
here
fund, 9,000.
in the hole.
Yeah.
that's what-
So, and it was at what, 66 at
Yeah.
the end of the audit? So it's accelerating.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep, we have to act on that and up that. So you would have to, so it's 9,000 now. You'd have to raise that at least $800 a month, probably to get that solid.
Possible.
Mhm. And if you took that over 220 households or whatever, that'd be a quick little calculation, how much to raise it.
Yep.
Mhm.
$3.63.
Brian's already on.
He's not only our maintenance and water guy, we'll have to add you to the team of John and Sue.
The number crunchers.
Yeah, well, all right, I guess it's very good.
Yeah. Definitely good news.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Welcome.
Yeah, definitely appreciate that.
All righty, we'll march on then. Approval of the minutes from March 10th and the 27th. Anybody with additions, corrections? If not,
On the minutes from March 10th, just a minor spelling error on second page, second paragraph. Or third paragraph. Second line, just discussion regarding vehicle parking.
Oh,
PRI, yeah. I don't know why that didn't pop up on spell check, but
yep.
anyway.
Okay.
anything else?
Nope.
Anybody else with any additions, corrections? If not, then we make a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion with corrections to approve the minute.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thanks, Greg.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you. Alrighty, approval of the bills, check 18,421 to 18,451. EFT 56,825 to 56,845 and payroll EFT 500,160 to 500,167. Make a motion to approve those.
Motion to approve the bills.
John made a motion to approve, someone second,
I'll second them.
Jim second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I oppose, motion carried. Community comment? I guess we can move on to,
I did have one person from the community come up to me and ask, what it would take to get, potholes filled. So I explained to him to call Sue, she'll make up a work order.
That's on my list. I'm gonna take a bucket of recycled tar down and fill the hole on Hiller Drive. That's getting some pretty bad
That's
ones.
the one, that's the road, yeah, right on
By
the,
the school, as it comes down the hill there, that needs to be filled. I've been spotting them. Probably even be able to get to that this week. So,
they were done with, for sure, by the one they've come down to the end, you're making the right turn to go on to the ball field.
yep.
That first one, I guess, is pretty deep, but
Yep.
I just said, well, I will pass the
Talked to
word.
Robert last week and told him I was planning to do
Okay,
that.
I just said I
We
would.
did good. We did good because that's the way we wanted to work. We wanted to go to the city hall and then and once it's on paper, it doesn't go away, you know, it has to be done in return. So
I
it's
just,
not like you say, yeah, I'm gonna do that, and then it never gets done. So.
I did tell him I would
Him,
pass on the word and I told him to, in the future, get a hold of Sue and we got a new work order policy
Yep.
and we have a new or tech, I don't know what you want, sure, coming on, we'll
yeah.
get this procedure rolling in the right
You're
direction.
on that, I'm gonna overlap with him for a week or two I'll work at my same half a day and then he can continue on the other half of the day. But, you know, one day it'll be how to flush mains, one day it'll be how to run the scrubber, one day it's gonna be how to do the software for the water meters and to do individual data collection and all those different things. Once I cover all that, then I'm gonna fade away.
Yeah.
Not completely.
No, don't want you to do that. I do think,
Nice thing though is now that I learned all this stuff, you know, I can run all the equipment, the machinery, the snow plow, the sanders, all that. If he goes on vacation for 2 weeks, you can call me and I can be a temporary fill-in while he has a vacation day or a sick day or something like that. So.
I think it's gonna be rather important that you are around too, just for the
mm,
transitional line to the checking or the watching of the meters of this, of that, because
Yeah.
you made a big investment on that and we might.
We don't want to hear retirement talk out of you.
uh,
We don't want to hear retirement.
Yeah, no,
oh, no, not yet. No, not yet. I get,
that will be disapproved, but.
That will be.
yeah, no, I'm not.
like Jim stated, you know, them water meters, which we had that big expenditure there. Wherever that was, wasn't, you know, that was a big investment, but boy, the technology now. He can tell Sue that there's a leak at 480th Avenue or whatever. And it is really top notch what we have done. And you're pumping so much less water now out of the tower,
Mhm.
you know, it's not wasting
It was a good investment.
that resource, you know, and we're not.
Today I went in there and looked at the cam strip and that's the part of the software that measures the noise level of certain meters. Yours is one of them that all of a sudden it popped up as a meter of interest. And that's when you were running the water, you got that going through your furnace deal that you got there. So yours started making more noise. The meter picked that up. And so I can click, this week I got my weekly report that comes from Camstrup. And I clicked on it, on the address, and it came up with a graph for the last, 6-8 months. And you can see the noise level going up and down and then up, when you started using that. So it picks up on everything like.
Yeah,
It's really.
it was a very good investment now, I mean. And what are we pumping out of the well, out of the ground and now?
Typically like 30,000 or less now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, 50,000, 60,000.
We were emptying the tower once a day, right?
Mhm.
Wow.
It's half as much.
Yep, almost half as much. Yep. And the
Not
lagoon,
all just due to the meters. Well, that's a big part of it, but we've kind of gotten things buttoned up, and we're not.
how about I there, a couple weeks ago, we got a couple.
Yeah, so I was gonna mention that when I got to I might as well talk about it now, but,
Well, we can get to you too. But,
but yeah, the INI is good. Typically in the spring when the frost comes out of the ground, we start getting some rain and the snow's melting. I used to get a couple 100,000 gallons out of the pond, and this year I had about 3 days where it went like 80,000, 100,000, 110, 100, right back down again. So I didn't get that huge but there wasn't a lot of snow on the ground.
Right.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, let's see, we better move on to the sheriff's report. We got to the 63 hours. It's here. Do we have to name them off or just
No.
good enough? Fire department, Chief Clammer had 11 calls, 4 medical, 1 mutual aid, 2 lift assist, 1 down power line, 2 grass fire and 1 vehicle. And they need us to improve a Galvin Deering membership to the Good Thunder Fire Department. Somebody want to make a motion to approve his membership?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Someone second?
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Alrighty, street update. New hire starts on 4:30. I guess now, Brian, you can
Yeah,
add a little bit more.
I can just talk a little bit about what I've been up to lately. What a typical day is like. Today I did 4 locates for power poles and internet around town, and 1 for Kellen. He's doing some excavation around his house, so we located his shut off and I went down to the park today and cut off the stump of that big 30-foot pine tree that fell. The other day I went down there and limbed that and then cut it into 3 big pieces, got that all down by the brush pile and pushed the brush pile up, pushed the leaves up. Took all the sand I took off the streets. I think I took 15 tons of sand off the streets, about, approximately. And it was so wet down there, I had to kind of dump it in piles in a row. And then I went down with the tractor the other day and got that all put up onto the big pile, so it's not, in the way down there. So typical day, I really never know what I'm gonna do when I get here, because it might have no locates, I might have 4 or 5 of them. I'm managing to get everything done on 4 hours a day. I'm working 22 hours a week and keeping up with everything. So I know it'll be different when the mowing starts, but just to say, a guy, if you have good time management, there's not a reason why you can't keep up with the things that need to be done. So,
Yeah, because in
Vehicles and
that
stuff.
time you've reorganized, cleaned, washed walls, cleaned the bathroom up and made that shop really very, very nice to come into. The ceiling's been a little challenged.
for him when he comes.
Yep.
I got a little work yet to do, but
Yep.
I'll get on it.
Oh.
And then meters, I read meters every Monday. And then I enter that into I download the meter readings into the software, and then it'll tell us immediately if there's somebody that has an unusual water consumption. And the last 3-4 weeks have been really good. I haven't had any unusual ones. We still have the ones around town. There's some that need to be addressed with.
From the time you start that till you run a report, hour,
Not even.
not even?
No, I've gotten pretty fast at it now. I got a route that I drive.
Okay.
If you take those antennas and if you don't just use the handholds with the antenna, the little wibbly antenna on there.
Yep.
If you use the real antennas that I stick them out on the hood of the truck and run them through the window and into those devices. You don't have to go there's a couple of them in town. If you don't do it that way, you got to drive up into their driveway and, or some of them you got to sit there for a while. They read a lot faster with the antennas on the hood. So I just do that every time now.
Yeah.
But, I got my route set now where you can hit all of them. And I bet today it was only 20 minutes, half hour by the time I was done. So it's not a lot of time.
Perfect.
Mhm.
All right.
So one thing, when you start working with Eli,
Yeah.
if you can go over all the curb stops with them, and then do we know where some of them are that need to be repaired or that we're gonna have
Well,
to?
there's one that needs to be, now that it warms up a little bit, I'm gonna go to try that one again. And see if maybe during the winter, I was trying it in January, remember? And maybe there was water down in that hole and I couldn't get it because of that. I'll try it again before we have to call Bonings to excavate that
Okay.
one, but I'll work him through that process of
Okay.
who to call and what to do.
Okay,
But,
because there's still a few that we don't know that Race never could figure out where they're at.
yeah, I ran into one today, actually, right, on, across from the Catholic church, there's a house right in the middle by the alley there. And on none of the maps, we've got this map, we've got my map, we've got one on the tablet, and then we've got some old ones somebody made by hand. There was no information in any of that where the shut off was. And, yeah, I don't know. On some of them, you'd have to go in the house. We've got two locators. One, you just wave back and forth and it'll read the curb stop. We've got one where you can put a ground rod, clamp onto that, and then clamp the other one onto either the well, if you're looking for the curb stop, obviously you're not gonna clamp it there, but you can clamp it to their outside faucet. And then you can locate the line down in the ground. So maybe a guy in a pinch could do that, but
There's no water main in front of that house, right? Okay, so in that alley
yeah,
down at the end, there's a curb stop in that alley.
yeah,
Would that be for that house?
could be, yeah, could be.
Yeah.
But there was none on the property that I could find.
Yeah,
There's one on, what street is that? Not Milky, one on the church
Ewing?
shop.
Ewing?
the Catholic church one?
Yeah, that street going east-west. There's a curb stop by that guy's driveway. I can point at it. The street the church is on, that east-west street,
Isn't that Shabbat?
Shabbat, yeah. Yeah,
Right here?
yeah. So right there where you got your pen, right there,
Yep,
to the right a little bit,
yeah.
there's a curb stop there by that guy's driveway.
Okay.
And I didn't know if that was for both houses or just the house on the corner.
Yeah, because there's one right here in the alleyway,
Maybe that's for the,
but then there's also this, no, this house would probably, well, that should be on there. Yep, that one's on there.
yeah,
So it could be that one in that alleyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, for the purpose of doing the internet line, I put, you have to click a choice, whether it's marked, unable to mark, or clear, nothing. So I clicked on nothing because there's nothing there that they're gonna run into with fiber because everything's 8 feet below ground, so. Anyway.
Okay.
Yeah, so I get a lot of locates. They're coming in fast and heavy now for they're gonna do this pull back here, probably. If they didn't do it today, they'll do it tomorrow.
I think they might have done it. They were back there today.
Okay.
I don't know if they actually put it on. I didn't look.
They're getting to them, so. But there's been a lot of locates coming in for internet.
All right. Well, then we have building permit GT 125. Any questions on that? They make a motion.
What are they putting in 2 egress windows?
Yeah,
I think they're replacing two. Oh,
They're just basement windows now. She said they're actually putting egress in there.
okay. I'll make a motion to approve permit number GT 01. Oh, that's the date. Do you have a permit number in here?
Yeah.
T01-25.
Oh, okay. I'll make a motion to permit to approve GP -01-25.
I'll second.
John seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right,
So who needs to sign this? Who needs to sign this one? Would that be,
you,
or?
you, me neither. We'll have one in the end of the month.
It's true. All right.
Frozen water meters, that's probably part of you yet, Brent.
So. You wanna just talk about those? We have one out here on,
Chapel.
Chapel. We did determine that there is a individual shut off for that. That's not the case where we thought we were gonna shut 2 people off. So if it gets to the point where you guys think we need to do that, we can turn the water off to that facility.
But there's,
Resident says that nobody's living there and the water is off inside the house.
Yeah, and he said that he wouldn't, he's gonna eventually do some remodeling inside the house. And he wants to move the water meter from where it can freeze to up inside where the laundry room is or something like that. And he has not done that yet. So at this point, there's no point in putting in a new water meter where it's gonna freeze again because he's already froze one.
Right.
And he's on his
He's
second.
already froze two.
Two, the one that's in there now is,
but you know, the freezing weather is over, so maybe we should shut it off and put it on, because myself, I don't believe that there's not water being used
Mhm.
because there's people there. There
Well,
is.
and I know, so I went and I asked our attorney, I said, cause I had said verbatim, this is what the resident told me. That nobody is living there, the water is turned off inside of the house.
Yeah, what's the
Because they're
proof of
remodeling.
that?
Per the attorney, we can shut it off at the curb stop because the resident stated the water was off inside the house. But I wanted council to make that motion instead of just Brian and I making that decision.
I think
Again, there's individuals that drive by after school that go to that
I just
residence.
seen it too.
And they also get on the bus every day. So we're talking 4 or 5 kids.
And
So
you hate to see them not.
I
have
think
it,
what
but
we
it's
should do
still-
is get a new meter on there because it isn't.
We
gonna
can't
freeze.
get a new meter on there because it's in the ground. So the resident
Is
has to do, it's inside a hole in
Under
the
his
ground.
trailer
Yeah, it's under the trailer.
in a hole.
But there isn't an outside access?
Not that I'm aware of.
Under the,
Gotta crawl in. According to what the resident told me is that he has to, something, there's a hole in the floor that they go into or something.
Can you give him a date? Cause he said he was gonna put it up. Can you give him
Well,
like a
he
date?
said nobody's living there, so
I would say
me-
let's turn it off at the curb.
He would,
There,
he would
we're
still,
gonna shut the water off.
even if you don't live there, you can call a plumber to do the work.
Yeah.
Like if you
Correct.
give him a date to say, hey,
correct.
you either do this or we're going to do this by such and such a date.
Well, like I said, he states that nobody is living there and the water is off to the house. So if the city wants to shut the water off the curb stop, that is not a problem.
Yeah, I would say let's shut it off at the curb stop.
The only problem I have is I believe there's 4 or 5 kids there.
Well, if there's kids there, that, I still say shut it off.
Then they'll fix it that much faster.
Maybe we need to contact the sheriff's office too to investigate who's living there, if somebody is truly living there.
Okay, John?
But if the owner says that it's off in the house, then I would say let's turn it off at the curb stop.
And the attorney said that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we'll soon know.
okay, let's
You
make.
know where it's at, Brian?
Yep.
I know it's in the backyard. I can find it. I'm sure Race has it marked.
Yeah. He
Well-
said it sticks up out of the ground.
I'm getting good at finding them.
Yep. He said it sticks out of the ground because that's one of the new ones they had to put in.
Well, one time there was a whole bunch of stuff piled over it.
Oh, really?
And Jason remembered where it was that time and showed Race or somebody.
Okay.
So,
They had to put a new one in.
yeah,
This last time, because there was all that water.
okay,
So-
well, that's what we'll do then. We'll see what backlash comes
Do you
up.
want a motion for that or do you just want, I mean,
Well, maybe we should have a motion to shut that water off.
I'll make the motion.
Somebody second,
I'll second it.
Scott second, all in favor, say aye.
I,
Opposed, motion carried.
The next step would be to make a work order and
yep. So
I need to-
and you're gonna do with the other one on Hulk?
I want to go try it and see if I
Okay,
can get
and
it.
then otherwise, can you just contact Bonings then, or do we want us to make a list of ones that we need?
On
to
her
remove?
one particularly, I mean, maybe we can contact Mornings to get on their schedule, but I'd like that to take place after Eli starts, so he can see the process
Mhm.
of what we do and what safety.
Yeah, she's getting billed an average of usage. I don't know how,
But it's leaking before the
It's
meter,
gotta be
right?
locked down there now,
oh, I'm sure, it's leaking inside her house, it's after the meter.
the dirt floor.
It's after the meter
Yes,
It's
isn't it?
or is it before the meter?
before, but the meter's cracked too.
Well, yeah, her meter froze too,
I don't know which one this is on Hulk.
on Hulk,
Yeah.
220 Hulk, or Hubble, sorry.
Hubble.
Hubble.
Oh, on Hubble.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah.
So anyway, we need to get on the list and get it fixed. Like you say, maybe there was water and it could be filled
Yeah.
up. Maybe you could possibly get on
That
it.
can be a tomorrow job too. Will you help me remember some of this?
Yep, I'll do a work order for both of those tomorrow morning,
Okay,
so
Yeah.
check your email.
we've kind of got a history going on the one,
Yep,
so.
All right.
You said get on that list, that might be a wait.
Dust control, we talking about just, well, that's what that guy,
that's at SW.
Yeah.
That's why I sent it, just because I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
If that's something you guys wanted to do now, last year you guys had environmental dust or something, so that's why it came through my email, so I put it in here.
well,
Which was the better oil?
the, oh, what's this guy's name here? Bogey. Bogey is the one that presented this one, right?
Southwest dust.
Marvin
Yeah.
Bogey, yeah.
Yep,
That there is basically chloride,
Calcium chloride.
calcium chloride that
What
does
is
not
that?
last very long. The other
a lot
one
of
is
rain
the
and
better
water.
stuff, but it's very expensive.
one from environmental, that's what you guys did last year on Graham.
Yeah, and see, that's that stuff that goes down your street. You know, that binds,
You never did it last year.
no, I know,
Oh.
that's what binds that recycled blacktop together. Is that stuff from them guys.
Okay,
So, last year when they did Graham Street there, boy, that helped control the dust. The other stuff, it's gone within a month,
Use the good stuff.
you know? So
For sure.
I can't remember. It's very high what we,
Last year it was 36.95, 36.69 for Graham Street alone.
yep,
And then in 2023, you guys did Halliday and Chapel, and that was 10,000.
yep. But it does laugh.
That was that sticky stuff, wasn't it, that you
Yep.
guys put on?
Yep.
That,
Real oily.
but it was like sticky. I mean, literally on our street, it stuck for
Yep.
months.
Yep,
It was horrible.
it is, but
It was
it
because
gives
you
you,
had it on your shoes and it was not it was not good.
but it does the job
Mhm.
far superior than.
Did it need more gravel or something to make it not so?
Well, they put chips over it, right?
Well, I don't know, but
They chipped it or, yeah, they chipped it up there. They don't know if they're chipping it there though.
I don't know, but I'm not kidding. It was literally, you had to pick up your foot. They were sticking.
But you don't want to do that until it warms up a little bit too.
Yeah, that's why, yeah, this was just on here. It came through the email.
Yeah,
So,
I guess my thought is that other stuff doesn't last good enough to.
okay, so we won't do this one, but we'll entertain environmental dust
Yep.
control later in the
Yep.
spring.
Yeah. Alrighty, unfinished business. Life disability insurance.
So we don't have it in the policy. That was on the agenda for last month, but the city doesn't offer it. It's not through the league. So, and I know that's something that Eli had brought up. He's the one that actually found it. So I don't know if that's something, we need to remove it out of the personnel policy if we're not gonna carry it. So I think we need to update that. And then if we want to, we just kind of get some information and have M&M come out this fall when we do our renewal for our insurance and get some information then. I don't know how long that's been in the personnel policy, but the city's never had it.
Is the league working on health insurance yet? You get a whole bunch of people.
Well, I showed you that public employee one that we did. I went and got the information for that. Oh gosh, last fall. And it was way higher than what we're paying now. The other one is the healthcare consortium, which I learned at the conference. And they kind of do a pool also. So they told me to give their information to Chad when we do our renewal, and then he can work with them on getting rates or something.
I don't know if I should ask Greg a few of these questions, but with the turnover and city maintenance and stuff, it's no different than the police. They come and they get experience and they go. Because Blue Earth County Sheriff or Blue Earth County roads have better insurance.
They can afford it.
That's right.
Mhm.
So, do we as a city to be able to compete, do we have to start an HSA for the individuals here? And take that money out of the general and throw in, just say $5,000 per year per individual
HSA would be a good
to
idea.
get that. Some incentive to be able to compete with other entities. I mean, how.
That's not a bad idea, but the number you threw out there is extreme.
Well, it
My
was
daughter just
just,
got hired on to a different company and it's $200 they throw into her HSA.
A month.
a month or a year or what?
No, it was a year.
Oh, no,
What?
that
No,
won't
that's not
even.
good.
I know, but I'm just saying that 5,000 was an extreme,
Well, yeah, but I mean,
but yes.
but you
that's-
could also throw that in there as when it's time for a raise.
Mhm.
Hey, we are putting that in there, and if you don't use it this year and you don't use it, then there's 10,000, and that just keeps kind of building. And
That's
that
another
way,
leverage, you could, do a raise or you could put more into an HSA.
because that way, if there was these small little trivial things, but they cost $2,500 and your deductible is $6,500, you're not taking that out of your pocket.
You're helping.
So, that's some things that a small town like us is gonna have to look at to keep people,
Yeah. Well, why don't we,
and what amount, I don't know, I just threw that
Right,
out.
yep,
why don't we do, like she said, gotta get a hold of M&M.
Yeah.
And see if they have an option. You can put your amount, certain amount there, or HSA is a
And
option.
there's a lot of different options.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
You know, I have no problem with seeing whatever it takes to keep.
Because I mean,
good
my
employees.
insurance premiums are outrageous.
and I mean,
I mean.
and the
it's,
deductible is what? High?
Yeah,
Yeah. See,
yeah, I never meet it.
to be able to afford insurance anymore, your deductible's very high.
Have to do an HSA.
And yep, and then, you know, you're footing the bill for the $1,000 bill here and the $200 one here. And, you know, where if you get that HSA there and
I think that's a great idea because we can't afford to insure. We've
Right.
already looked into that avenue, but we
Yeah.
can't afford an HSA.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I mean, like when I talked to Chad, we could have a policy that's very similar to what we have, but it's an HSA plan. Because we do have a high deductible, but we're not an HSA plan.
Cause
So
then
that could be something, which I never understood that either.
with an HSA plan, you could have it to where the city would put in so much.
Yeah, and you
And
still
if
can, and,
you decided to add to it,
Yep.
you can put in
yep,
a little bit. So like you were saying, the
And
hit
it's
isn't so
tax-free.
big and it's tax
right,
free.
and it's tax-free and you can use it for anything.
so then it's just
Right.
totally an HSA. There's no
No.
separate healthcare.
No, you would get a healthcare
Yeah,
plan.
Yeah,
And then you can have an HSA with it, and where the city maybe would pay 50% of the premium or 75% of the premium. The employee pays the rest of it, and then you contribute.
Yep.
$100 a month, whatever, to the HSA.
yeah.
And
I
that
mean, there's
goes
a lot
in,
of different ways to look at that.
because that goes in before tax.
And
It
you
goes
said-
in.
Correct.
You said there's you learned about that up,
The healthcare consortium, yep, at the conference.
okay.
Yep,
Is that something a small town like us would get
Yep.
into?
Yeah.
yep.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They just put it all into one big pot.
So basically, it's kind of like that public employer one, but it's, according to what they've told me, that it has more options and it's cheaper. I'm not sure. I didn't get a lot of information on it. I mean, I just didn't read it.
So,
Cause you'd be going strength.
how would that work if you,
What's
just say we're
You'd be
gonna
going
throw in
strength by
$1,200 a year?
Right.
Yeah.
And the individual was here for 10 years and he never took a
No,
dollar
I
out of
don't
it.
think so. I don't know.
When he departs at the end of 10 years and there's $12,000 in it? Did that go with that new person?
I don't think,
I have no idea.
I don't,
Just wondering.
That I have no idea. I don't know. I'm
I think it would be rare that.
minimal
people
on
use it.
HSAs.
I don't either. I'm just,
You don't have HSA?
no,
Oh, we have
I have
HSA.
social security.
Oh,
I got the best insurance in the
we
world.
have a very high deductible for insurance.
Yep.
So it can be affordable because I'm a business owner or whatever. But we have HSA and that's how we have to pay our doctor bills because
Yeah, yeah.
our insurance is never going to touch our
Right.
doctor bill. Like we're never, so HSA is great.
Yeah, you
It's
would
more like a
only,
major medical at that point.
Major
It's a
medical, yeah.
Yep.
Right. I mean,
Mhm.
So you can only change that policy once a year too, right?
Correct, October.
October. So, I mean, this life and disability, would that fall under Chad's policy
Yeah,
then?
yes.
Yep.
Yes, I think so. Well, I can talk to him and
So is everybody happy with waiting till what, October then to get this?
will we,
We need some legwork up front, I think.
well, yeah, I need to start working with them and get the word to them so that they can start preparing information, get information from us, what we need.
Yeah.
I'm kind of waiting for Eli to start because I mean, his age, plays a role into that too. What's gonna benefit the city and the employees.
Right.
So like the life part of that disability insurance, I mean, is that what is it, a 50, 100,000, $200,000 life insurance?
Life insurance is usually equal to your salary, your yearly will pay.
Okay,
If an employer offers life insurance, they usually cover it up to the equal to your year. I mean, you can obviously, the employee can put more money into it and then get a higher coverage.
I guess we'll be learning about the insurance industry before we know all about this.
is that something that we could maybe ask him to come to a meeting?
Oh,
before
absolutely.
all of
Yeah,
us?
no, that's what my plan
Cause it
was,
would be easier to get.
to talk to him, get him some information. He can put together
you know,
a presentation, bring it here.
Meetings anyway.
And then, cause he comes here in October. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
it does,
Yep.
okay. I just thought it'd be easier than trying
Yeah,
to.
yeah, and then you help
pass
him
on all
present
this
it, and then we can we'll kind of review it and narrow it down to a couple and let him present it.
Okay.
All right, well, that's what we pursue that then. Spring cleanup?
It's scheduled. For what, April 24th?
Through,
Yeah, April 24th through the 20th, through that Saturday.
yep,
I think they're gonna pick up the dumpsters either Saturday or Monday.
Oh,
And the question is, how many do we want? Do we want them inside, outside? She said they can, because we're doing it early enough, we can kind of choose what we want. I mean, do we want to start out with 2 dumpsters? I don't know what you guys have done in the past.
I think, you
If they
know,
need to interchange one out, we can get them to change it out.
2 would be, should be sufficient if you're gonna do it on start on Thursday.
I would think so, you
It's
know, and
already full by late
Well, if
Friday
they're full
morning.
By Friday, then we'll have to call. and
Ask
say,
for
hey, can
another one, cause
you know,
you got
put
the
us another
Saturday.
one.
I would like to see you put it outside. Can you just hang a sign under this area is under camera surveillance, good under residents only.
yep, that's
Yeah.
right.
And then, cause we really don't want it in the shop.
I don't think you do, because who knows what's gonna be in there?
Yeah,
That's right.
And then you're setting it up for rodents and whatever.
yeah.
People don't
that's a
wanna
very
go
good
there
idea.
anyways.
No, so, and this way too, if it's outside, you know, if we need to push it up, we can have Brian push it up. You know, the garbage into the dumpster or whatever.
Oh, it'll be
Connected.
piled all over it, I'll guarantee you that, but, at least we have cameras there to see that if it's not in-town residents, so we need to have a little sign like you say.
Mhm.
You are being watched,
Mhm.
good thunder residents
Yeah,
only,
Yeah, we can have multiple.
Laminate some signs.
yeah. All right,
Do you know which side you're putting it on?
I don't know yet.
Let's see.
Maybe we'd either go like between the 2 garage doors in front
Oh, you wanna put it right in front?
or on the side.
On the south side would make more sense.
The best camera footage is right in front.
Oh,
yep,
It's my daughter. Oh,
yeah, I think, you know, if we get 2, put one on right in front of the south shop door and the other one
yeah.
south of that a little bit, because the camera is right there,
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
well, I'll make sure that you're here.
Yeah, let me know when they're coming and I'll meet them.
All right, parking lines on Hulk from Maine to Sherman.
So last month, you guys talked about putting diagonal parking lines,
oh, in front of the church.
and that you guys can do that. There's nothing in the ordinance per the attorney that says you can't, and the street seems to be wide enough, I'm assuming, right?
Well, that's the way it's always been, you know.
So I don't know if you wanna if we wanna have Brian find a company that will do it, or does the city want to have the city guy do it? I don't know how you guys do parking lines.
I don't
Straight
know.
lines?
With diagonal?
I think you can rent that from A to Z, right?
Yeah,
You could, I do know a guy that does that.
yeah,
Okay,
there's guys that do that on the weekend.
Yeah.
Hire them at Westpac and they come and they're done in a day. They run a sweeper over it first and
Got a little go-kart looking thing he runs all over, he sweeps it and they just,
it was pretty affordable.
yeah, it wasn't
So you
bad.
gotta give me the contact number, Jim,
I can do
and then I
that,
will get a hold of them,
sure.
just to get a bid if the city wants to do that.
That'd be nice.
and I don't know how you would ever cure it, so nobody parks there, you know, for Sunday morning.
I have driven by the past couple Sundays when church is in session. And there's been nobody parked on the church side of the street,
It was just those couple times.
other than people going to church and
Yeah.
but I mean, there was nobody blocking
Right.
it. So I don't know if everybody was talking about the west end of the street, which I don't see, I mean, that's their residence, you
Yeah.
know, so they have every right to
Yeah,
park
that's,
there.
no, that,
Right, right.
But I thought, the way I was understanding is they
It's
were.
the east
parking-
side of the street, right in front of,
East
side,
right in front of the steps, yeah.
But the past 2 Sundays, there hasn't been.
Yeah. I think you only see that if it snows.
Well, there was one time there wasn't snow too.
Yeah,
Was it? Oh, okay.
A camper that sits there too, does that ever get moved?
All right,
But those lines would be nice even for the
Yes,
church
it would.
people. And
Well, it would be.
down, yeah.
Yeah, same.
all right.
We're talking
City Hall parking lot,
on Sherman.
we had 2 bids. Well, that one bid, is that current?
These are both current bids within the last, probably January. when he
One
was like,
point four
"Anything?"
is- That's perfect.
Almost $20,000 difference.
Yeah,
Oh,
Well, it says 7/18 of 17. That's-
yeah, I saw that too.
When I put it in your mailbox?
I don't know, somebody gave me MK Concrete, I don't know who.
Yeah. So I was digging through files going through stuff, and I came across a bid for this,
Yeah.
and she wasn't here, so I just stuck it in
Oh,
the,
that's where that came from?
yeah.
Crying out loud. I just thought the
Sorry.
guys didn't know what year it was.
No, I put that because I knew you were getting bids, and I thought, well, maybe you'd like to see what it was a few years back.
Oh.
Yeah.
That too, and I thought, wow.
I didn't notice that at all.
No, I didn't see that.
I've been a year off for him.
Okay.
All I noticed is that was for
Okay, so-
6 inches and the other one was for 4 or 5 inches.
If that's how much it was in 2017,
I hate to see what it's gonna be.
I hate, exactly, I was gonna say, I hate to
Yeah.
have them do a bid for 2025.
And I did talk to another individual that's very close, 4 or 5 miles out of town.
Okay,
That's probably coming and seeing you to give a bid also.
Good.
We haven't put a time limit on any of it, right?
no,
So I mean, I guess it's,
I don't know how long this proposal is. Oh, it says it's good for 90 days, so we may have to have him do another one.
yeah.
Yeah.
He did it anyway.
On
Yeah.
that practically.
If you wanna make that phone call.
Yeah, he's in town over at Kellen's right now.
Okay, and then we gotta figure out what this is. Is it 4, is it 5?
Well, you wouldn't want, you'd want to have just 5. You gotta
5.
give them both
Yeah,
the spec. You
Yeah,
want
he
5
wants to
inches,
give him, you want him 5?
5 inches.
Well, tell him that we
Yeah,
needed
5 would be better, so it holds up.
5.
The only reason I brought that up is because if it was
And I guess
reading,
call this guy and see if he'll give a new bid.
You really want a new bid? If that's how it was in 2017?
But
Well,
this is
no,
6
we-
inches in rebar. Those other ones are 4 and 5 inches.
Yeah, but they all have
Rebar.
rebar, right?
They're all
They all got
rebar in it,
rebar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
then I wrote down, is that fiber mesh concrete? Is that regular concrete?
Might not have been on the same.
Yeah, we just wanna be on the same
Oh, no,
level.
I don't, if you don't, I don't care.
this is why we have our maintenance guy do this, because I don't know what all those.
Yeah.
I would refer to an engineer. I know nothing about concrete.
I don't either.
Well, the only reason I said that is because if they pull this up and it's a difference in even an
Good.
inch throughout the one, they say you get a free load of rock. Well, if is that inch difference, well, there's another load because
Right,
you're not gonna have a lip going in and out of the door.
right.
You want it level.
Well, I can contact this other one and ask him if he wants to do another one.
Yeah, maybe a couple more.
I guess, you know,
Why not? As long as I'm
Yeah.
calling, we can.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
see
we'll
if
try
we
to
can
get
one in this year anyway.
2, 3, 4 of them, you know, and.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
a guy too that I'll call and tell him to come look at them. If he's interested, if they're not busy.
All right, website? That's my expertise.
Yeah, website. There
What
we
did
go,
you
mine
guys-
too.
I don't even remember with this one. We got the new website. But we had a contract from the old one yet that I wasn't aware of because there was nothing here.
we talked about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked.
So,
yeah.
How do you guys want to deal with that? You
'Cause-
just want to keep paying that other one yearly? Because I can't, I tried to get him to come down. I tried to work with them and they're like, nope, the way it is.
For how many
So-
more years?
Three, I think.
I mean, it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Okay.
We're locked into him.
And I'm not gonna pay him all of it now and have it done. They can just wait a year.
Well, no,
Yeah.
if he would lower it
Well, I
to
would.
get out of it sooner,
Right,
it
yep.
would,
but they.
so we pay you for 2 and you get rid of 2.5,
Right,
3,
yep.
that would be a different story.
Okay. So that's where I was with that.
Well, as long as we're on the website and Wi-Fi, I had a person of the community ask me, is the city's Wi-Fi in the parking lot out here locked?
Should be.
Okay, well, they can't figure out why. I guess there's cars coming up after supper, sitting in the lot. And the car sits and there's headlights on going into their house. You're trying to figure out why they would be sitting here.
Here,
And they were,
unless they know the password.
Yeah, cause I can't get on it with my phone. I mean, I can try right now, but
Yeah, if you don't have it's all password protected.
yeah, so is the.
make sure it was locked.
Yeah.
I don't even know the password for the shop, so.
No, evidently it was a rumor, but that's why they were coming up here and sitting here because they could get on the city's.
I don't think that's true, but
I'm just, yeah, it was just brought to my attention.
I would, whoever's telling me that, I would just tell them, give 911 a call, say, hey, there's somebody.
Right.
Loitering by City Hall and.
You know, there are people that will sit at City Hall and they're getting pop or,
That and
Well, this-
pick up in the afternoon.
Yep,
I don't know, this person it was dark and they said the car sat there for a couple of hours
Oh,
running, headlights on.
Really?
Yeah, blasting lights into their house.
Well, then I guess they
Yeah, I-
better call 911.
Yeah.
You can't access it, so it is locked.
Yep,
Okay, well,
yep.
I said I would ask.
All right. Schedule a public hearing for ordinance changes.
Yes,
Oh,
so we need to move on that. Do we want to set that or do we want to see if we can get some more information on the cannabis?
We do have,
And we pass the one for cannabis though too, or what more information?
No, that
No,
one,
we-
all the other ones did. But if we're gonna do a public hearing, I want to put them all on one.
Yeah,
So now we're kind of held up with that cannabis one.
all we did was to voted to go by state standards, county.
oh, okay.
We haven't set our own,
Right.
and I have asked a lot of questions since then. And there is quite a bit of differences on everything as far as cannabis, low dose hemp is different. Liquid version is different than grown version. And I do have two individuals that are very knowledgeable in the field that did volunteer to come out and bring us all up to speed if that would be something that we would be interested in.
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, cause.
Is it to sell it so a business could sell it or what?
It's like three different ways. The one is a dispensary, which is obviously what we don't, wouldn't want. The other one would be, like I say, low dose hemp is usually in liquid form. Growing is the smokable. And then you got gummies, chocolates. I mean, there's so many different avenues and
Drinks.
the drink is a liquid.
And stuff.
Yeah, oh, there's a lot more about it than,
Is it ordinances for, individual houses or
For businesses.
No.
just for business?
So we
Just
need
for
to have, we need to have an ordinance
Just for the business?
because of the cannabis.
because individual houses, that's regulated by the state.
Okay,
You can have so many plants
yeah.
if it's only for your own, I mean,
If it's for your own personal, yeah, but if you
Yeah.
want to sell it or.
But this is just-
for-
this is more mainly for setting your limitations, so you would not have a dispensary, a refinery, a
Grower.
grower
Yeah.
business in your town.
Yeah.
And it's totally different. You're talking about it like on a liquor license. Some of it can ride on a liquor license. But then you pay a percentage to the state and it's like 10% different in a sales tax
Mhm.
than you do.
You'd have to be
Regular.
registered with.
And
the
that's,
state,
yeah,
yes.
and that
Yeah.
percentage gets dispersed
You know,
to the cities.
So do we have a copy or can we get a copy of a county ordinance already or haven't they got that far yet either?
Yeah, the county has it, because
Yeah.
well, you guys had it.
we had it.
You guys had that one,
Yeah.
because a lot of the townships have given their authority,
Yeah, there's a
Delegated
whole
to
list of
county.
it. County has
because
authority.
Lyra gave their delegation to the
Mhm.
county.
I did read through that.
Letting go like Crystal did as well.
How about other small towns? You talk to them at all about what they're doing?
They've all got their ordinances in place already.
Can you get a copy of some of them?
I have them,
Oh, you have them? Oh, heck, we can do it tonight. We'll be all done.
we won't.
Well, yeah, if you
Yeah, so
got
I
some of
mean,
that information.
So do we want to wait and do that in May? Do you want to schedule a meeting? To just have
Cannabis meeting?
for lack of a better term, yeah, a cannabis meeting about the ordinance?
Yep.
Or do you want to wait and do it in the May meeting?
Cause it's once they start explaining it, it is really simple. But they know what they're talking
It might
about.
not be a bad idea to have one and, I mean, we can post it and then if
Yeah,
residents want to come in and learn more about it or they don't, I mean, whatever.
I'd say do it in a special meeting.
Yeah,
So
I
that
think
we
so
can just
too.
Focus on that and be done and then we can
yep.
schedule the ordinance hearings.
So could we do both? Could we do a hearing and a special meeting on cannabis? We couldn't, could we?
Well, we haven't approved, you can't have a public hearing until the council approves that one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay,
So-
never mind.
We could do
but we
it,
can,
we could do a public hearing prior to a council meeting.
Yeah.
So like
before the
May 12th?
Council meeting? Yeah.
You could do it,
if I know.
well,
the time.
no. I prefer not to do it that one because I won't be here the week before because I have the Institute. So your May packets, you won't get them.
You're in the Institute.
I'm in, yes. I'm going to the.
Institution?
Yes, I'm going to go there. Never come back.
Okay, don't know.
Hey,
how-
can I go with you?
Rooms in a cot, sounds good to me.
So you won't be here on the,
I will be here for the May 12 meeting, but the week prior to that, I will be gone, so we're trying to get things.
how about like the first or second of May? That's on a Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, I'll be here.
Yeah,
You could do a special meeting then,
maybe, maybe Friday.
preferably not a Friday.
No, Friday, you're not gonna, if anybody from the community wants,
Well, and we need to find out
Go to my.
when,
Yeah, just give me I would say if we're gonna do a Thursday or a Friday, a Thursday would probably work.
we could shoot for the
Thursday.
first,
On Friday.
I'll ask them.
unless you want to do,
May first, you're saying?
Yeah,
unless you wanted, I mean, even like the end of April. Whatever,
Okay, what are you thinking there?
what, the end of April?
Yeah, just give me a day. I'm gonna write it down. I'm gonna ask them. and-
Well, do you wanna do-
Yeah,
The 29th.
I was gonna say, what about if we give them the 29th and the first and they can pick
Okay,
on that? What works best for them at like,
it shouldn't take
Half hour.
yeah, I was gonna say if you'd say a 6:30,
they bring in free samples.
if you like, yeah, I'm sure you would.
Just.
Yeah, we'd have a real relaxed meeting.
somebody better bring
Brian
veggies.
wanted snacks.
Yeah.
I'll come as
Gummies?
John.
Do you wanna set it for like a tentative, I mean, obviously tentatively,
6 o'clock if it works for them or
6 o'clock would work?
6:30.
for everybody or 5:30?
I don't think we need an hour and a half, but
No. I wouldn't think so unless there's a lot of community and there's a lot of questions. And I will have those ordinances for you then too. I'll try
Would
to
it be
get
a-
to you prior.
At what time did you say?
well, I'll be right before a regular, oh, wait,
No, no, no,
this is a
no,
different
these
day.
are, this is a special
Special
meeting.
meeting. It'd have to be at 7 o'clock if
Yeah.
you want public input. You know,
It's 29th.
Was it?
I'll be here.
wouldn't you? Resident, public input at 7 o'clock.
Said Tuesday, the 28th. No, we did say the 29th, didn't we? I wrote the 20th on mine.
What about the 30th then? That's a Wednesday.
May?
April.
April 30th.
April 28th, 29th or the 30th or May 1st?
I can't, I can't on the 29th.
April. I was looking at
Okay.
May.
The 29th either.
So you can't, okay.
Can you on the 30th?
I can on the 30th or the 1st, yeah.
Okay.
Scott?
Anybody do it on the 28th?
April, I can make the 29th and first,
I could make the 28th also.
First?
you know.
Okay, so let's, the 30th or the 1st then, Jim, and you can let us know.
Oh, you said the 28th, Scott?
Well, I was looking in May. I thought it was May.
Oh.
And-
15th and 29th, 9th is.
So if the 30th does not work, first does not, work, the only other option would be 28th. I'm gonna do, I'll just.
28th is on Monday,
No,
so that would be kind of like tonight.
Okay,
but John, you can't make the 28th?
I can't do the 28th, no.
Oh,
Well, you can't do that one.
No, no.
Well.
then I will,
we'll
I'm
try-
guessing it would work. I'll ask. He made it sound like, as long as we didn't get into, summer, ball season and everything else, that their schedules were
Okay. And
pretty
you wanted to
open,
go
so.
at tentatively, would you say 6:36, 5:30?
What's everybody want to do?
Well, I would think you'd have to, if you want invited at a public meeting, you'd almost have to have it at 7, so people are home, had supper and here, and maybe there won't be nobody and they'll take whole 15, 20 minutes to
Well,
get it.
right,
So my thoughts are you have to have it later.
6:30, 7 o'clock? What do we?
I just go to the standard time of 7.
Okay,
okay.
I will ask.
7 o'clock. May 1st.
Yeah, that's the first choice and the 30th will be the second
Yeah.
choice.
Okay.
All right, yeah, just let me know and then I'll
I will do
get
that.
it around to council and we'll post it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, new business? Anybody got any new business?
Well, on the, just one quick other note, one other patron of the town did ask me about an update on the school, which I see Sue does have in here in our meetings where we go to new business, old business. And she did call Mike Drummer, stated they are ready to go, just waiting for interest rates to drop. Then they will start. with interest rates where they were, the project would not cash flow. So in case they're listening, I'm updating that question.
What's it say? Something about it's gotta go below 5.
Yeah.
He wa- yeah,
Right
he's
now
already-
it's at like 7. He said it just won't cash flow because he'd have to charge more for rent and it's just not feasible in Good Thunder.
He's looking for 5.5, so we'll see what,
I wonder how long it'd take for interest to go
I
down.
don't know.
Well, did he just say it was like at 4?
No, that's for a
That's
long,
Loan,
government,
Okay.
yeah.
government loan.
Okay.
Well, wasn't that, he
Isn't
trying
that
to
what he
get
was
that?
looking for though too? He was trying to get that.
I've never talked to him, so I don't know what his plan is, yeah.
Yeah, he was trying.
He
to get that
he was getting a match or something. He was trying to do the
with that
application
State
for some state funding for,
low income or
Work.
not low,
what was it called?
affordable
Working.
housing,
Working family, how, something?
you know,
Yeah, because it wasn't like a
it's a state funded.
rural
loan.
development housing, but it was more of a,
Yeah, and there were
Working
some
family.
key things that you're
Yeah.
able to get it better
Yeah.
or quicker with, and he
and then
had
he
those.
could only rent it for like, what, 9 to 1,200 a month or something?
What is the rate on a house now?
I didn't think it was 7%, but I mean. 6s, 5s,
Okay,
depending on your loan and
Your
your
loan
credit
rate.
rate and
yeah,
all that.
okay, yeah.
I don't know anybody that's doing 7 yet, but
No, I
Yeah,
think,
so I don't
I've
know.
never heard.
His wouldn't be a standard mortgage loan, though.
that's probably true. I don't know
Be
that.
more of a business loan,
Yeah.
business construction loan.
And has there ever been a business plan put together that's been presented to council for what the plan is for that building?
Oh, yeah, he
Okay.
brought us plans, he had
I
a
was not on it.
draw it out at 25 or 26 apartments, was it?
We're quite a-
24,
It was a-
27, something like that.
And 1 bedrooms and 2
Mhm.
bedrooms.
Okay,
It
and then,
was, yeah, he had some.
I thought it was 13.
No, it was more than 20. There was quite a few.
Cause he had some 3 bedrooms in there too.
I think so.
Yeah, he had a couple 3 bedrooms.
Yeah,
I remember that.
okay,
That might have been before I came on.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
so yeah, he had some projections of what they were gonna do with it, so.
okay. I just was asked the question. I said, truthfully, I can't even tell you because I don't even know that information.
Yep.
So,
So. No other new business miscellaneous, you're going to,
Institute,
To the Clerk Institute.
Clerk
This
Institute.
is my 2nd year.
where they put you in a flak jacket? and
Yep, yep,
Tie your arms behind your back?
absolutely.
we have to make a motion to have Sue attend.
Do we? Oh, I thought we
I
had.
thought we
Okay.
did.
Yeah, you did that already.
Yep, we
Yep.
did that already.
Yep.
Okay,
I think it's the last one or whatever. I did get a $200 grant for it this year, cause I think it's like I think it's $500.
That's cool.
Last year I got 100, this year I got a $200 grant for it, so.
cool. Reimbursements?
Yeah, in the packets, they
Yeah.
can be approved.
And the one pursue for the
Oh,
conference for 193.50 and one for
Right.
postage for Brian for 9.53.
Yeah.
Motion to approve both of the reimbursements.
all right.
I'll second.
John made it, Amy second, all in favor?
I,
I oppose. Motion carried.
Heard anything back on the Dakota Mart yet?
Still in the works, ain't it?
Yes. Had a court date, I believe, but that's all I heard.
Yeah, and again, I don't know who will put the underground tank. That's gonna have to come out of the ground. I don't know what'll happen
You
there.
could convince them to turn the building over to willing to do it.
Yeah, yep,
That back wall's getting pretty bad.
I know it.
One of these days it's gonna collapse. Hopefully somebody ain't around it.
When you get licensed in order to put that tank in the ground, that must have been put in their name.
No, that was
That's
put in,
been
you know,
put in
Oh,
long
shit,
time ago.
30 years ago.
30 years
oh,
ago, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
whoever owned half.
So then you just,
Happy Dan's at one
Yeah.
time, right?
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
But it
And
hasn't had any.
The hardware store was still there when that was put in. Cause they had them yellow posts there along the hardware store, so, yeah,
Yeah.
Scott's right, 30 some years ago. So,
So every time you acquire that property, you acquired,
The liability.
Whoever
The
bought it,
liability.
yeah, because you bought it for a gas station or a convenience
Yeah.
store and you assumed the responsibilities.
Yeah.
Now that, all that, what has happened in this case, I don't know who will foot the bill.
They're probably full of water.
Yeah.
Been how many years? 4?
Yeah, and we don't really have anything figured out for, you know, if they let it get unsightly.
I know the state was down there 2 years ago, because they were here at my shop. And they didn't go to my gas station because it was brand new, but they did go from there down to there, and I seen them measuring.
Hmm.
I don't know whatever happened, become of that. So, and I know he called me about coming back again to my place, so maybe they'll be going down there again, because it's every 2 years.
Oh, but
With that being said, we'll have to wait and see as we've been patiently waiting for quite some time. I was down to the ballpark yesterday with my grandchildren and that's, John, you had an idea. What, you go down there and we have a beautiful concession stand. But it's not getting utilized anymore. The ball field, the posts are getting crooked again. What is the city of Good Thunder gonna do with that whole area? I mean, John, you made maybe we'd have to put pickleball, tennis. Is that still a big
Huge.
thing or was it a fad?
huge.
Yeah, I think it's,
You go by Amber.
And frisbee golf is big.
What?
Frisbee golf.
I don't think we have enough space down there
Not
for
enough.
frisbee, no.
Yeah. I know the pickleball court that they rebuilt and added onto behind CNS Supply in Mankato
Yeah, that's.
is busy, 7 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah, but that's all that population down there.
Yeah.
How about like Amboy, they got one?
theirs is utilized though. That's what Patty
Is it?
says. Yeah, theirs gets used.
Really?
I don't even know where Amboys is.
It's right where the old school was.
Right, where
The
the
old tennis court.
I have seen people there on the nicer days too.
Mhm.
Okay,
So I mean, it's up to us to
we need to get that used,
figure out what is gonna happen to that ballpark. Do you keep it maintaining the infield and keep dragging the lime and,
Do we have Little League? Is there Little League
There's
teams that get
nothing.
there? Everything goes to Mapleton.
everything goes.
Okay, well, there's such a thing as, we use it as a dog park. We pick it up. We like to go down there. He loves it. He runs from one side to the other and
In fact, there was a guy down there yesterday when I was down there with my grandchildren. He says, how about a dog park?
I was
Okay,
gonna
so
ask that,
again,
too.
it's fine to having a dog park if people are responsible,
Yeah.
but if they're not responsible, then
Who's
guess
gonna
what?
Pick it up.
There you go.
we,
Not
You
the
do not believe the enormous amount of dog poop and all of the garbage cans empty in town. They're almost half full every time,
Yep.
yeah,
which is good. They're picking it up, but
they're picking it
Yep.
up.
Oh, there's a lot of dogs in
I
this.
don't change them once a week in the summer. Oh, Eli, they're gonna get pretty stinky.
But it is nice to have a place to be able to take the dog and let him off leash. We stand in third base line or left field line, right field line. He runs back and forth between us. Just to let him get out and run. He loves it. But
Well,
at
I
least
know-
it's being
We had
something
talked
to
about,
be able to utilize.
was something gonna be like,
They're holding the retention pond.
yeah. So we
is
didn't
down
make
there
any
somewhere
decisions because
on
of
the other
that.
Side of the
Up by the
basketball hoop.
old skating rink
Yeah.
area.
It's gonna go west of the old skating rink. So that's where the old basketball court
Yes.
was. That's
Yeah.
Right there.
pretty poor shape.
Yeah, that's
We had talked
all.
about
about it.
resurfacing the basketball court, and that's when we said the retention pond is
Yeah.
going down somewhere.
This might be a dumb idea. I don't know how it would work, but could you move that concession stand up to the?
No.
No,
It's all black.
that baby ain't moving nowhere.
You gotta move your activity to that.
Okay,
Yeah.
And that's
That's a beautiful concession. stand.
Yeah,
That
it
would
really
make
is.
sense. We don't have great lights, but there's at least some lights.
Mhm.
You got the concession stand is very nice.
it is.
If that infield area is not going to be used for baseball anymore, you got a sand base, lime base, you got a good start. You could do pickleball there.
Would softball, baseball ever come back?
It's kind of funny how COVID killed it. And,
COVID killed a lot of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't, I played down there a lot of years and we had a great time. Every Friday night, Good Thunder was full of people.
And the firemen had hot dogs and hamburgers down there. It
Yeah.
was a great deal.
Yeah, and people
But-
came that weren't
Yeah.
watching baseball, but they just came for the hot dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did.
or it was kind of both.
Yeah.
You know, they
Now-
came, had a hot dog, and a little
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 entertainment.
supper and had a little entertainment and yeah. It's I know back when I played, that would have been awesome to have all that there. We didn't have that. It's a shame to see it.
Yeah, it is. It's a
Well, if
very
we had
nice
a
thing and now we have nothing.
Community, if we had a community committee or whatever you want to call it or something like that, that you could bring some stuff, maybe you could get people in, you know, on a Friday night for something or whatever, but I mean, we wouldn't be able, it would have to be a community meeting that did that. I don't know how to get that.
But it-
started, but-
What, I don't know, I was thinking of that before because I was brought up about a pickleball court. I don't know what kind of money we have in a park and rec account. I was gonna look that up. and I didn't, but yeah, that, in order to use that concession stand, yeah, it wouldn't be, I don't think that much. I don't know, maybe I'm blowing smoke, but to do 4 pickleball courts in a square, to do tennis / basketball, as long as.
The only thing is, like, the concession stand is for when you're doing a sport, you're gonna observe, you know?
Mhm.
Nobody's gonna eat hot dogs and play pickleball, cause it's,
Oh, no, unfortunately, that,
nobody wants to eat when they're working out.
I called George Strait.
Nobody's gonna sit
Could
and
have a
watch 'em.
concert, but he can't make it.
Yeah,
Put on the wait list.
we don't have enough room, yeah. But I'm just saying there are options, there are the ideas there where it would be nice to see it.
Well, I think we talked about in the fund that we would have enough to do something.
You brought up that, what was it, that frisbee golf or whatever? Disc golf. that's what
Disc
they're
golf.
called.
Yeah, but that's,
Well, there's probably, you could do a short course.
yeah, you ain't gonna do
3,
no,
4.
you're not gonna do no 9 holes, yeah.
No.
Like they got, no.
I don't know if you can get softball back there. I mean, you'd be the person that'd probably be able to do it. I don't,
Boy, the young people today, they're more interested in their thumbs than they are
Yep.
getting out and playing softball.
Mhm.
Have to be somebody a lot younger than me, because I know I'm done playing.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think the school district will ever utilize it. They have 1 or 2 over there now. So here we are sitting with it and it's up to us to make a decision. You know, how are we gonna move forward?
I think we need to take our time with that one. Cause if we take out the ball field, then what are we gonna do with that concession stand? Chances are the concession stand's not gonna get used
No.
ever again at all.
No.
Unless
you had some leagues, do they have leagues in pickleball? You know, the one thing about the ballpark that was always popular is always, at night it was shaded. On a hot day, it's always gotten shaded, you know, and it had a little bit of a
Little draw that.
little draw because it was all shaded and it wasn't out in the middle in the flat.
It's kind of in that bowl, you could always sit on the hillside, you could have a blanket, chair, whatever. Yeah, it was always kind of unique to the area, because
If they ever got pickleball tournaments and they moved around to different towns,
I don't think, well,
I don't even know what pickleball is.
At least,
I don't
a
know.
combination of ping pong and tennis.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
at least if it was down there, I mean, yeah, the concession stand won't get used for spectators, but if there's a tournament or something, the people playing, I mean, if there's like beer involved, people are gonna buy food, you know, I don't know. At least it'd be small chance of it being used versus none.
That's what I was thinking. If we did a pickleball court, you'd have to do it down there if you want to supply the bathroom facilities,
Then you gotta give volunteers
Water.
to run the concession stand.
well, that would hopefully, again, like she was saying, you get some committee, some group,
Well,
some.
businesses that wanna fundraise, like fire department, that was fundraising for them, you know, so they did it every Friday night, cause they made the money on the hot dogs and whatever.
By the way, down in there, there's still 3 or 4 big jars of pickles in the fridge and
Oh.
other stuff from back then when the firemen were doing it. Do you want me to
Throw it.
Out of there.
We're having a cleanup week. You best get rid
Yeah,
of it.
that'd be a good time to,
There's like gallon jars of pickles in the fridge.
really?
Yeah.
How much was there on them?
That was probably,
I don't think
John's.
and I think they're still
Really?
Still
What
sealed,
was
still
that?
sitting in there, yeah.
technically it probably belongs to the fire department. It was theirs.
Could have been St. John's was in there. a couple-
St. John's was running it and they just abruptly quit. That's why the fire department kind of
Oh,
Took it
took
over.
it over.
so it's probably the fire department's pickles. I can drop them off.
They're probably pickled pickles.
Yeah, I'll take them. No, I'm kidding.
I know
Well-
they built a pickleball barn out on east of Menards. Some guy spent millions,
Wasn't that
Half
drummer?
million.
3.5 million, built big fancy building and
Wasn't that drummer?
they play,
No.
no, they play
Some young couple,
pickleball. Yeah.
they're only in their mid-30s.
They spent like
Well, the
3.5
dad's,
million bucks.
Wow.
a doctor, a dentist.
I don't remember, yeah,
Peter.
but it's.
There's always people in that parking lot.
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
People love their pickle,
Pickleball. They're very serious about it.
you know?
So how much does Amboys get used?
It gets used a fair amount in the summer.
Yeah,
Somebody had inquired about like a sign up sheet. I guess, because every time they went, there were people in it.
really?
Oh.
They only have one area, right? It's only one.
Thanks, or is it
There's a
two?
couple.
It's- I think there's, you can set them up as a double.
Because I don't know how they.
Usually don't ever have just a single cord. Usually it's
There's
a double
two- There's two
cord.
nuts in it, yeah.
Yeah, it's usually a double cord or a quad cord.
It's at
Oh,
least
okay.
two.
Yeah, yeah, it's at least two.
And they just put their nets down. They're not in use, whatever.
Call that clerk over there and ask them what they kind of spent on theirs, so that'd give us an idea.
Yeah. Give the community if it,
And again, like I say, man, we had a beautiful ballpark and a beautiful concession stand, but now we got no people.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Unfortunately, I don't think a lot of that's gonna change anymore. I don't know. Not unless we have a big crash and nobody has a cell phone up for.
I know it. Yeah, the cell phones have got everybody preoccupied.
There would have to be cameras down there.
well, that, but if he's gonna put
We have them already.
23 apartments in the old school and
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe if we could get these patio homes up here and get some young families
And
and,
there's kids that ride around on their bikes all summer looking for stuff
Well,
to
and
do
there's
too.
people that do go down to the park quite often. I mean, I see them go down the hill.
Yeah.
You know, so that it does, whatever's down, you know, people are using it or they're hanging out.
well, they're
you
in
know.
that playground equipment.
Yeah.
that's-
well,
Yeah, that
it's
wasn't
something we
over
need
there.
to work at, see if we can figure out something.
Yeah.
We can
Because
have our,
it's,
we
Have
can have
a
our,
brainstorming.
Keep your eyes open as you go to other communities and visit relatives and stuff, and maybe you spot something somebody else has and it looks really good. You know, as you're traveling around and.
we should come up with a
all right.
community, community committee. I don't know what you call it.
Committee, yeah.
Could have that rubber band thing out here.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, yeah, swimming pool.
They would eat concessions and they sun and bathe and they.
Imagine the cost.
We
Like
wouldn't
the
get you to get
splash
anything
pads
done.
for people.
No splash pad, those are horrible.
Yeah,
I think
no.
it's used all the time, but
No.
not that I want.
I've got my grandkids there and my granddaughters loved it.
That splash zone.
That's why we brought all four of them, you know.
Yeah.
Really?
Why is that terrible? Just because they,
I'll tell you a story.
okay.
The splash pad and the chlorine level got too low. And all these kids, they have this, it would squirt here and then it would squirt here and it would squirt here. So the kids would run around and, well, it was shooting water up their dirty diapers and it got in there and they all got cryptosporidium and a bunch of kids got sick and one of them died.
Oh, yeah,
So you
really?
gotta watch the chlorine levels every day.
Oh,
Wow.
Thanks.
Quite a bit of maintenance, a lot of maintenance that goes with the splash pad.
There's a lot of upkeep.
Mapleton's was broke down for
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
a while last
All
year.
right, well, that makes a
I don't know what was wrong with
difference.
it.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was it on the miscellaneous I had. Anybody else got anything miscellaneous?
You know when the Thunder Pancake Feed is, right? Or not yet?
No,
Okay. It's the 27th, right, Scott?
You
Of April?
Yeah,
Okay.
9 to 1 or something, or not? Is that the right time?
I think.
I just,
We backed it or shortened it up an hour.
what is it then? 9 to,
April 27,
9
9
to 1?
12.
Oh, was it 12?
that was from 9 to noon.
I think I shared it today and I put the 1.
No, I haven't got anything. I will post it though.
No, the last one, we bumped it back to noon.
I know they had talked about short.
He's gonna come up with that. Oh,
I didn't hear from Phil, so.
Yeah, I've got some stuff here.
We never ever,
For two of
we
you.
didn't even talk about that.
so that thing that Greg Burkhart was talking about, we need to keep that on our agenda?
The fire department audit or whatever.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
was it called, John?
The actual.
Actuarial.
Actuary, yeah.
Actually, yeah.
You know, we need to discuss
Especially
it
if he
maybe in
gets
future
us-
meetings.
he
and
gets
see if
us
that's
that
something that
information,
Needs
that
to
would
be
be-
done.
Yeah, I didn't think, now that this audit was really pretty clean, so I wasn't as concerned about it as I have been in the past, but was it Greg that brought it up? He said, if we have to go with funding, if we have to get any funding for the water project that we're looking at, then yeah, it'd probably be a good idea to have a fully clean audit. So,
Yeah.
I think it'd be worth our while. And it seems like we did do something on that last year, but I don't remember where we ended up.
He's brought it to our attention for quite a few years.
We did the
We
actual,
did it last year. I have it.
okay.
I presented it. to
Well, I thought he
council.
said it was good for,
We didn't have the audit
Every other
done.
year or something.
It wasn't
We have
that
an audit
an
every
from
year, and it-
previous year
it
from,
just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
You have an audit, you don't have that actuary.
He said there's only two in the state of Minnesota.
The
Sounds like
people that
it's kind
do
of
it,
a-
yeah.
Kind of a,
If you know anything about numbers or know anything about an actuary,
no,
it's a very highly sophisticated, smart
Yeah, why don't you adjourn it?
individual. It would be like a professor.
It's the gravel.
I took, business math, business accounting, whatever, all that through there. We actually had an actuary come in and talk to us. And if you think you know numbers and they start spitting out numbers, they lose you in a hurry.
yeah.
We'd be sleeping.
Oh, it's very intense numbers.
Well, we need to keep it on the
On the-
On our radar.
agenda to.
but he never
discuss.
came right out and said how many towns
Towns actually do
were
that.
actually doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that, was the
What?
live, was it on live on the,
Oh,
that PowerPoint that he had?
Yeah, it was on the
it was on
PowerPoint.
the PowerPoint and everyone back. I mean, no, it's been recording.
Oh.
It just wasn't showing it to you guys.
To us, yeah.
Yes.
Did you want to talk about this for any other reason?
I'll
Give it to
I'll
us.
get with you.
You and John.
Okay.
I'll get with you later on that one.
Nope, I just was curious if it was something we were supposed to.
No.
I think
All
it's a
right,
good
well, if
idea.
that's it. Nobody else has anything? Somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Someone a second?
I will second it.
Jim second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye opposed, motion carried. Thanks, everybody.